Well, good evening, everybody. It's the Cryptid Huntress. I'm Jessica Jones. Welcome into our show tonight on the hunt, where we are going on the hunt tonight with Mike Smith out of Kentucky. You guys, Mike is brand new to the Cryptid Huntress channel, but he and I have hung out a couple of times up in Kentucky, and he's awesome, y'all. Y'all are definitely in for a treat tonight. He has generations worth in his family of cryptid encounters out at the LBL and Lake Berkeley and that whole area out there. And tonight we're going to get into all of it with Mike Smith, y'all. And so buckle up, y'all. We got a lot to unpack tonight, and it is going to knock your socks off. I promise you that. And so, yes, thank you so much for all your support this week. We've had some wonderful shows, and this one will be no different. It's going to be the cherry on top, y'all. So yeah, if you guys would like to check out the Cryptid Hunters, y'all go over to my website. It's thecryptidhuntress.com. Y'all can find all of my shows, my social media links, all that is over there, including my Patreon as well, and my Etsy shop if y'all want to check out the goods over on War Woman Goods. All right, thank you guys so much for all your support. All right, well, let's get into our show tonight, and here we go. All right, tonight we're going on the hunt with Mike Smith of Kentucky to discuss his encounters with beasts, all the beasts of the land between the lakes, including Bigfoot, Dogman, and an encounter that his father had with a lizard man at Energy Lake a decade ago. Mike Smith is an avid hiker and outdoorsman who has spent much of his life exploring the land between the lakes area in Kentucky. He describes himself as a reluctant researcher who primarily is a fisherman, or was one, until a specific encounter changed his life in May of 2020 while fishing with his wife and daughters at the LBL. I believe that was Mother's Day, probably. He had a close-range Bigfoot sighting, and following this 2020 encounter, he began actively researching the phenomenon, primarily focusing on the north end of the LBL, which is the Kentucky end, where I like to research. And so he's had multiple sightings and encounters since, not only with Bigfoot, but Dogman and other entities. He's had a lot of paranormal activity as well, probably in his house, from what I recall. And he documents his findings on his YouTube channel. It's Smith Ridge Adventures. It's down here on the ticker, and we'll pull it up at the end of the show tonight. You guys, please help me welcome to the show, Mr. Mike Smith.
Hello.
Hey, Mike. Hey, Mike. Thank you for being here.
That might have been the best introduction I've ever gotten. Thank you very much. That was awesome.
Well, you are very welcome, and you are much deserving of the most fantastic intro ever. So I'm so glad you're here.
Yeah, glad to be here.
Well, thank you, Mike. Thank you, Mike. I had the pleasure of meeting you at the LBL the same night that Matt and I, actually Martin Groves, Barton Nunley, and Tish, and Matt, War Criminal, we got ambushed.
Yeah.
About 2:00 that morning.
Yeah.
Right after Barton had interviewed you about the lizard man.
That's right. That's right. I guess I left at depending on how you look at it, the inopportune time or the opportune time. But I heard I missed a bunch of excitement.
You did. Well, it was terrifyingly amazing. Okay. Yeah. It was scary. It really was scary, but it was also awesome. But you're not, I mean, you're privy to all the high strangeness out there, and it's not anything new to you, right? Because you've been hanging out at the LBL for decades.
Oh yes, just probably. I've been on a bunch of shows. I get my dates, mixed up here and there, the years. But when we moved to Marshall County and I went my junior and senior years. So that's 88, 89, 89, and 90. Uh, Prior to that, I'd lived down in Clarksville, Tennessee, which is only a few minutes away. So I have memories from 1982 when I was 10. My family was down here, so no matter where I was in the country, we spent summers down here. But we used to skip school. As soon as I hit my junior year and had got in my car and turned 16, we used to skip school and hang out in LBL starting full time in 88. So yeah.
Did your parents know about that?
Um I'm gonna say yeah, yes, not to the extent. A few times I didn't get any calls from school, so they thought a little bit was okay, but I did it way more than they really realized, I'm sure.
Yeah, it was for educational purposes, wasn't it?
That's correct. And
Yeah,
I wasn't alone. It was me and a group of guys, and we could game the system back then. You can't game that system anymore. So
true. I know. I know. I know. My son will never get away with it if he tries.
nope,
Okay.
nope.
Oh my! I just noticed we've got Martin Groves in the chat tonight. So Martin, our fellow friend over here and researcher, thank you for being here, Martin.
Yeah, I talked to Martin today, and I meant to tell you. So I'm looking at a tiny screen on a tiny phone. So if somebody's talking to me or saying something, I'm not being rude. I can't see you, so you'll have to relay those messages to me. But yeah,
I
love
will.
Martin to death, man. Like I say, talk to him today.
I will. Thank you so much. Martin was actually there with us
Uh-huh.
when Barton interviewed you, and then that night Martin got pushed around in his truck while Matt and I were getting ambushed. Barton
Yeah,
and Fish were sleeping. Okay, but yeah, that was a group affair there. That
yes,
sucked, but it was also great at the same
yeah,
time.
yeah. No, Martin, man, he'll get you into some stuff. So I had my Bigfoot sighting you mentioned with my family, and then
Mhm.
from doing a few podcasts and just trying to get my story out there, really to make myself feel better and understand that I wasn't crazy and there was a whole community of people that knew and believed. And that led to the Small Town Monsters doc that about dogmen. And I just happened to have an experience in high school where I could verify being in LBL and hearing some things that were strange, and then having people talk about the massacre prior to the internet. So that was my involvement with them, verifying that it was a pre-internet thing, and that's how I met Martin, and then got into the real weird. I'm just trying to go fishing and go hiking, and I'm into all this weird, scary stuff now. So
That's how it works, Mike.
yeah,
I started off as a Bigfoot field researcher, and now I'm out there chasing werewolves and stuff.
yeah,
And
exactly,
I wouldn't have it
exactly.
any other way, personally.
I
But
know. Oh, it's
it
it's
gets fun.
fun.
Well, it's not only, I'm out there. Originally, I was looking for Bigfoot, and then we started getting UFOs and ET
Mhm.
involvement. And now we're doing finding out there's dogmen out there, and there's all
Yeah,
sorts of other strange cryptids. And somehow
yeah,
I've graduated into being the cryptid huntress now. I just look
yeah.
into everything. But we started off looking for Bigfoot,
Right,
and
right.
now it's really morphed now. I wanted to ask you about the growing up around the LBL and hearing about the massacre out there.
Hmm.
Now, there's a lot of speculation about that. There's never been any like hardcore evidence, like newspaper articles or anything like that. But there's been eyewitness testimony when it
Yeah.
comes to that. And so you're saying that you knew about that, you'd heard about it back in the 1980s. Is that right?
Yes. Yes.
Wow.
So the thing was always be aware of people that were bitter about losing their land, which was only 20 years prior. So it was always don't go out at night, and that's a standard thing. The woods are worse at night, the ocean's worse at night. So that wasn't like specific to LBL, but that was my rules. Don't go out at night. Don't be there alone. Watch out for, they called them wild men,
Mhm.
witches. I've shared that, witches and serial killers. I've shared that with people. There was a real famous, still unsolved killing of a couple girls down on the south end. So as we ran around, we were always aware of stuff, but we were going to camp one night. A group of us that worked at the restaurant, we always found a way to have a party at the assistant manager's house, and she loved having us there, but she wanted to do something. And I had a van. I was raised a military brat. My dad was, raised me to live that life. I unfortunately could not serve, but I very much was geared up and equipped, and I had been on week-long float trips up in the Shenandoah River and the Appalachian Mountains and stuff. So I was very experienced outdoorsman, and so they're like, bring your van, bring some wood. We're gonna go set up there during the day. And this was in the North End. Now, and I've always said the from the story I read and from the proximity to Fort Campbell and the proximity to a store and the proximity to a farm, it's always sounded like a South End story to me. But I was in the North End, and I get to work, and they're like, we're not camping. And I've got this van full of firewood and all my gear, and then they're like, and you've got to go get all of our stuff. They're pretty scared. This is the assistant manager, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to let you off early. Instead of getting off at 11 and closing, I'm going to let you off at 9. Craig's going to go with you. He's going to take you to the place, get our chairs and the tents we left and stuff, and come back to my house. Cool. And so Craig was there earlier, so he knew where we were going, and he takes me up there, and he's just telling me they heard something. They heard something. We get out. We're loading the stuff up across the bay. We hear it. It's just, I can't describe it. It was like I thought it was a cougar. It was a bellowing, just a crazy. And he goes, it's a wampus cat. He was calling it a wampus cat, which I didn't. That was my first experience. I didn't know what that was. And I said, man, that's just a mountain lion. And there's its kill right over here. There's a deer in the bushes. Let's just get out of here. A few months later, and I can't remember who this is. I've asked, but one of the girls there was asking us if we heard what happened to that family over there, and that there was a family murdered. And again, back then, without the internet, social media hysteria, we were like, yeah, people die over there all the time. They've always told us to watch out. We already knew those girls had been murdered a few years before, so we were just like, oh. So I didn't think anything of it. I didn't attach it to anything like that until I got into this. I remember seeing Barton's drawing when I coached a soccer team in Katie's years later, and I remember hearing a story about a dog man or a werewolf from one of my soccer players. And so I was actually kind of aware of it, and then I started thinking in hindsight, well, maybe. So I know there's something over there that could have done that. I will vouch for that now with my own experience, but the details are just, I think they're always going to remain pretty sketchy.
Mm-hmm.
I will tell you one more thing, and I've shared this before, that makes me really believe that it happened. When that Small Town Monsters documentary came out, I'm part of a Facebook group that they coordinate the cleaning of cemeteries. There's a few people in that group that were children when their grandparents got kicked off the land, and they're very bitter about stuff, and they don't like all the beast of LBL, all that stuff. And in the conversations, a lady, and it switched over to Messenger, a very old lady, very nice, sweet lady. She said to me, I'm friends with a detective that worked that case. It did happen. It was a serial killing type of deal. They picked a guy up in Florida on their way back up north. When they got to the park, he killed them all. The guy was in jail in Florida. She didn't know if he was dead or alive or what. She swore that she was friends with the detective that worked the case. He, from here, retired in Florida, and she just wanted me to quit talking about the cryptid stuff and let it go.
Oh, that's not suspicious at all.
Right. And I tried to get her. I'm like, please come out, please. I can get you on a documentary. I can get you, please. And she said, no, I don't want any recognition. I want to remain. In fact, she said she wanted to remain anonymous, and that if anybody contacted her, she would say did not tell me that stuff and that I was lying. So I've respected that. But so I'm the people around here are pretty, I don't know, it might be 50-50, but I'm very confident that something did happen.
Mm-hmm. I I am too. I mean, I'm pretty confident something happened there too. I wasn't there, but you know, I was tasked that as a remote viewing target a while back, and I'm trained with the military style of remote
Yeah.
viewing, and I believe it happened
Yeah.
personally. And
Yeah.
I think that there were probably two of these beasts. Now, this is the drawing. This is a sketch that Barton drew, and
Right.
I would say he never gets enough credit. Okay,
No.
for drawing these things.
No.
You know, just on Thursday night, I covered the Kentucky Gravediggers, or a Kentucky Gravedigger, and Barton actually drew that thing from an eyewitness report. And
Wow.
so
Yeah.
Barton is he's got his finger on the pulse, so
Yes,
to
he does.
speak,
Yes,
of
he
all the
does.
cryptids out there. But
Yep.
this is interesting. This is from an eyewitness sketch. Now I don't know who he got this from. If it was from, you know, there's a fellow named Roger that claims that he was there. Okay,
Right.
when it happened, and but this is what people describe, and I'm almost shocked to hear so many encounters where they say it's like a Bigfoot or a werewolf, and it has a bat-like face, which is kind of
Yeah.
weird.
Well, I
Kind
tell you
of
what, from what I've seen, the little I've seen and heard about the Wampus cat, it's not too far off of that either.
really.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. A lot of and I think even listening to Roger and hearing some of these descriptions, you will hear cat-like sometimes
Hmm.
in the description. So I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah,
I just report and share what my experiences have been and what has happened to me. But
right.
that's what my friend called it, a Wampus cat.
The
Yep.
wampus. I hear a lot about the wampus cat. You know, I live in the very tippy southern tip of the
Yeah.
Appalachians down here in Georgia, and my research area spans out into Alabama, into like the Talladega National Forest, and
Right.
that's where I saw my dog man. I've always been hesitant to say like 100% what I saw was a dog man because it was
Yeah.
unlike anything I'd ever seen in my life.
Oh yeah.
And,
Oh yeah.
and it almost looked like a panther, but it also looked like a bear and also like a hyena. So it's
Exactly.
just weird. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Oh
It doesn't
yes.
it doesn't fit the chart. Like there's a
No, no,
chart
no.
of dogmen. It doesn't look anything like any of those.
You're right. You're right.
You know what I mean? So
Yes.
but you know, but the Wampus cat is known pretty well down here in the Appalachians. I do a lot of my research in North Georgia in the
Mm-hmm.
mountains. And some say that's a shape-shifting cat.
Yeah.
A
Maybe.
shapeshifter.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. That's what I've heard. And that again, which would fit right in with a lot of the experiences that we're having now in Land Between the Lakes.
Hmm. Well, let's talk about some more. Let's talk about your experiences at the Land Between the Lakes, because the most famous is what you mentioned, with the family who was allegedly unalived, as we say on YouTube. But there
Uh-huh.
was a massacre of a
Right.
mom, a dad, and two kids,
Yeah.
and then there's been hunters that have gone missing. There have been hunters who have died. There have been deathbed confessions from
Yes.
what is that, Kentucky or Tennessee fishing game,
Yeah.
uh, saying that they watched a couple get ripped apart.
That's the one that, yeah, that's the one that really struck me just in listening to it. And I don't remember. I've got two names in my head as to who did that, so I'm not sure who brought that, whose YouTube I listened to, but I totally believe that. That was like I say, that's one of the first ones. I guess when I don't know, I can't remember when Barton's movie hit YouTube. I'm pretty sure I had seen that one first, but right after that, I had listened to this guy. Um, and actually, what sparked it was funny. I watched Finding Bigfoot. I watched it and would look up after that, or have there been Bigfoot sightings around? Has there been stuff around here? Because I would think LBL ought to be that kind of place. And that is just that, and I'm pretty sure it was up by Nemumbers Bay. And I'm sensitive. I know you and I have talked before about remote viewing and things, and I can't really be in Nemumbers Bay. I don't like to go there, and I don't, I connect it to that story, and I don't know for sure if that's where it was, but just how awful it would be to be in a boat, and the story is he came around. I believe he was off duty, but he came around and saw some campers, and I don't know how far offshore he was, but he saw this thing coming, so he's waving and yelling at them, but they think he's just saying good morning or hi, and then he watched them, and I tell you what, if for the people that don't believe the pressure that that is exerted on you, just in a lot of jobs, but definitely magnified with law enforcement, public service, politics. I 100% believe that it's very easy to believe that somebody will just be quiet to protect their retirement, to protect. I mean, I worked at a company. I won't say the name. I don't want to bash anybody. I worked at a company for 8 years, a really well-known large corporation, and the politics and the stuff that went on in that place, and the stuff that was swept under the rug, and just the everyday things. So it's yeah. So when I hear somebody that says I wanted to just protect my retirement, there's nothing I could have done. I reported it. I did report it, and then the people above me said squash it. I had no problem believing that, and I think most people wouldn't have a problem believing it either.
Oh, I worked in government for almost 20 years.
So
Okay.
you,
So I
yeah,
worked for this, I worked for the state of Georgia. Okay. And I didn't work at anything that had to do with Bigfoot or natural resources or anything like that.
right,
I worked at I was at the Capitol all the time and stuff. And I was
yeah,
just always begging for money for my agency that I worked for. But,
right,
basically, but anyways, I know how politics work. I worked in politics my whole life. Okay.
yeah,
And,
yeah,
people don't work their entire career just to lose their benefits because
yeah,
they went and talked to us about Bigfoot. I started Bigfoot field researching back when I worked for the state. And it was
yeah,
a hobby. It was on the weekends. It was something fun, but nobody knew. I didn't speak publicly out about that for 10 years, Mike,
right, right,
because this was a long time ago, and the scrutiny just from
yeah,
people who knew was it was a lot to
yeah,
handle. Yeah.
yeah,
So I
absolutely.
get it.
Yeah, and there's people that like they cry. There was a guy talking about, well, if it's not on a Freedom of Information Act form, then it didn't happen. I think it's funny. Every one of us that has been pulled over and gotten a ticket and has had the police officer go, well, you were going 85, but I'm going to knock it down to 79 for you, so it's not 15-mile over violation. I mean, that's happened. It's happened probably to how many thousands of people, and we don't start crying corruption then. We don't start crying falsification of records then. We're
Sure.
like, thank you, sir.
Thank
But
you. Yeah.
but then when we can't find something else, we're trying to make something fit this little box, or we don't want to shift our paradigm or open our mind. We're like, oh no, they don't suppress evidence or falsify records, or that couldn't happen. The government, yes, it does. Yes, it does.
Yeah, they do. Listen, I've gone through I've gone through divorce, and I had to go to court for stuff, in the
Yep.
past.
Yep.
And I'm going to leave it at that. I have
There you
seen
go.
corruption. I'm just going to say I have seen some corruption. Okay.
There you go. There you
In my
go.
days. Okay.
Yep.
And also shout out to all the law enforcement out there and first responders. I love you guys. Y'all are the good
Absolutely.
ones. Okay. There's good, and then there's some not so good ones out there.
Yep.
But
Yep.
but a lot of things, listen, doing all this. I mean, this is my hobby, right? So
Yeah.
is the researching of all these cryptids and stuff. And
Yeah.
and there is clearly a cover up, Mike,
Oh.
through all of these suspected attacks. It's not just at the LBL. These are all over the country.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Absolutely. We've got some critics. We talked about before the show, a critic we just made himself known here on our comments, and where do you think the show Missing 411 came from? I mean, where do you think
Yeah.
it's funny? Martin, I think Martin is the only one that has been on, I think, Monster Quest twice. Maybe Barton's been on it, but Barton's wasn't for LBL, but LBL actually is relatively unknown as far as Discovery Channel, Travel Channel, the big shows on TV, but yet they've had shows on for decades about this stuff because it's all over the nation, probably all over the world.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's these things happen all over the place. And
Yeah.
and I wanted to ask you tonight a little bit about like the history behind the LBL, because like that's kind of where we're focused on tonight, talking
Yeah.
about your encounters out there. And
Right.
where we were camping, okay, so I've been to the LBL 3 times now. I think I've been 3 times.
Yeah.
And the first time I went out there, it was just for one night, and it was with Barton and Letitia and Anna and her daughter and Matt. And we had a wonderful trip out there just that one night. And then we're actually, unfortunately, there for our friend Cryptid,
Yeah.
Mark's funeral. But then the next time I went, a month later, we camped out. That's when I met you.
Right.
And we had an ambush. We had all sorts of crazy stuff happen at that location. The third time I went, we were actually camped out at a cabin. We stayed at a cabin over up at that horse farm.
Yeah,
You know,
Wrangler.
horse farm is. I've
Yep.
heard you talk about that before. And the night before I got there, they had something slap the cabin in the middle of the night. Okay, so there's
Yeah.
activity even there. But let's kind of focus in on that one place. The set when I met you, we were camped out at the bottom of a Indian burial mound,
Mm-hmm.
according to Martin.
Yes.
And
Yes.
well, is there a connection to all these burial mounds and these cemeteries to some of this activity? Do you think?
Absolutely, absolutely. And so you and we'd always heard about that. I think there was some talk at one point that maybe there was no Native American presence there, and that's just not true. It's well documented. It was a hunting ground. They were. It's funny. I've got what I think is a burial mound on my property, and I don't know, 20 miles east. I've got a little 5 acre plot here, 20 miles east of Land Between the Lakes. And so you've got a place called Wycliffe Mounds, which is 40 miles maybe west, right on the Mississippi River. You've got the Shawnee National Forest just north of us. And then all the stuff down in Tennessee south of us, well documented. So it's harder to believe that there wasn't stuff here when you got some of the richest ground. You've got all the rivers coming in, and it's just so. Yes, there's mounds there. Um, I've always thought it was kind of now. Here's the problem: that whole place has been logged before. What you're seeing now, you've got to remember, it was mined for the iron ore. It was logged. I mean, there were airports, schools, service stations, post office. So the topography now has been changed, and so when you hear that maybe these mounds were buried and covered up, it's real easy to believe. But you'll still see them. I've got a place. It's crazy. It's not a connecting. A lot of the hills and the ridges, they connect with what's called a saddle. They'll connect with a
Mhm.
saddle, which is an easy place. You can see it on maps, but you'll see these domes and these crazy formations that don't really fit in. And maybe they do now more as time has gone by. But yes, it was very active, the way I understand it, with Shawnee, with Chickasaw, with Cherokee. I'm probably forgetting a couple, but there was multiple tribes that came in, and that's where some of the first legends of the shapeshifters and the crazy shaman came. They were there. They were here way before anybody else.
Mhm.
If that answers your question, I don't know. I danced around a lot of stuff there, but
No, it does. It does. I mean, I had recently, I'm going to say about 3 years ago, got called up to a property in North Tennessee. Now, it's a
hmm
little ways over from where the Land Between the Lakes is. It's kind of more in the middle of the state in
hmm
Tennessee. But we got called out to we found out it was a skinwalker cave. And
wow,
there was a family having a bunch of um, potential dogman, definitely Bigfoot activity out there and other stuff. A lot of paranormal stuff was going on. Well, it
yeah,
turns out it wasn't until 3 years later, recently, my buddy Bruce Brown, who's in the chat. Bruce was a a law official out there,
yeah,
and he said he remembered seeing our cars out there camped out. We were doing that investigation. He was talking about how part of it turns out a woman had been unalived in the house on the porch. We
wow,
didn't know about that.
yeah,
We were up there investigating, but they were kind of the family there was kind of a target because they had leveled an Indian burial mound in the front yard right there. They
wow,
had leveled a mound, Mike, like taking it
yeah,
out, and all this cryptid activity was taking place out there, and
yeah,
still taking place out there because of that.
yeah, yeah. And so you look at just that the part of that went on. My dad had some land, um, probably 10 miles west of Land Between the Lakes. It's in a place called Wadesboro. That was Wade's Creek, that was purchased from the Native American contingent there. There was a little trade going on, but you look at uh, all the cemeteries that are there that had been moved. So
Mhm.
people don't realize that most of those cemeteries were down under what's Kentucky and Barkley Lake now. Many of those families were moved twice. I always think about the movie Poltergeist because I know there's still tombstones. There's a real popular one that's still visible when you get down to Winter Pool in the lake. You can Google that. There's still, but we always wondered, did they move the graves or did they just move the tombstones and the headstones?
Oh gosh,
Uh,
probably
you know, s-
probably
s-
both.
right. So I mean, there's just everything you could think of that would be a reason for weird stuff, including the proximity to the military base. Just the flow of the water and the way the rivers actually flow north and they go into the Ohio, Mississippi to create a vortex. I'm telling you, anything you can think of that would cause some type of weirdness, Land Between the Lakes has it.
Yeah, and and William Nighthawk's in the chat. Hey, William. William is a Lakota medicine man, and
Right.
William, I've actually conferred with him. I've done some consulting with him before I did, investigations like that Skinwalker Cave investigation, for instance, right?
Right.
But he was saying, and I agree 100%. LBL is not just Bigfoot and Dogman.
No.
Of
No.
course, your father has. We'll get into this story just a little bit because your father might have seen a lizard man out
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
But the thing that Matt and I experienced that night, along with Martin and Barton and Tish, I while it was happening for like a good hour, we were standing pretty much back to back against a tree, Matt and I,
Yeah.
and we were just getting surrounded, and rocks were getting thrown at us, and
Yeah.
my night vision would not focus; it kept going in and out. I mean, whatever it was invisible.
Right.
You couldn't see it, and
Yeah.
I questioned out there. I was like, well, okay, could this be? To me, it felt like they came running down. You could hear them running down the
Hmm.
Indian burial man on
Hmm.
2 feet. You can hear them come run down the other ridge line. I mean, they were coming off from all directions, and it sounded like people.
Yeah.
Um, but there was nothing there, and I was like, well,
Right.
are these Bigfoot? Are
Yeah.
they, out of our light spectrum range?
Yep.
I couldn't see them. Are they dogmen, or are they spirits of the Native Americans?
Yeah.
Are they paramilitary in cloaking material? I,
Right.
I didn't
Right.
know that, Mike. It was so weird because it
Yeah.
just kept going, and it kept lasting forever. It felt like.
Yeah, it's and that's a really something that I had to adjust to. Now, I had some experience with the paranormal and was really well versed in that and open to and a believer in that. But I took a group. Martin was down there filming a documentary with one group, and I was in there with the security team, NCI.
Yeah.
Jerry and Tim and Robert, and
And
we
George.
got into we got into a spot. Great guys. We got into a spot, and I told them, pay attention to your left. This is where something comes down, and we'll walk beside you on the other side of the creek. It's done it every time I'm here, and they're kind of like, oh, they're into it, but they're like, okay. We didn't get 20 yards in, and the guy caught it on thermal. One of them caught it on thermal, and then you could hear it, and it paralleled us, and that kind of took their focus. I was in the front. I forget who was with me. I was trying to get to where the group was, but they peeled off immediately because they're like, "We can hear it." But they couldn't see it.
Yeah.
But you can hear it plain as day. It's that takes a lot. That's what really opened my mind to the Bigfoot. I knew the one I got a good sighting of. It moved so quickly. So I was still thinking natural. I think that's where everybody has to start. This is a natural, undiscovered species. And then I was thinking, well, it moves so fast, my eyes aren't used to tracking something that fast. But I was out with a friend and casting the first print I ever cast, which is funny because Jeff Meldrum, rest his soul, um, he actually analyzed the video of me doing it and over email verified that was not a Bigfoot track that we were casting. He said it's a track, but it's not a Bigfoot track. So the guy that was with me, we were on a little knoll and we heard something just jump off like it jumped out of a tree. We felt it. You could hear the steps. And I'm like, Michael, we're gonna see one. Let's go out. There's nothing there. And there
Yeah.
was nowhere for it to hide. I mean, you could hear and feel these footsteps like a linebacker was running right below us, and it's gone. And then you're just like,
Mhm. Oh, Mike, they didn't leave us that night. Like
Okay.
they stayed there and harassed us. And
Yeah.
and the worst part of it, I'm going to say the worst part was like it was almost kind of comforting. I know this sounds so weird coming out of my mouth, but
Yeah.
like I was okay with it. I went there to get harassed by cryptids, kind of, and so that's why I go there. So it was okay. It was terrifying and it was fun at the same
Yeah.
time. But I
Yeah.
also didn't know if I was going to make it out there alive that night because
Yeah.
it was very daunting, and they were taunting us. And when I went, like I kind of ran sideways over to my truck to go grab something to
Mhm.
protect myself with, let's
With
just
you.
say.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
and my night vision, when I got over there, they threw a rock right in front of my truck in the lake,
Yeah.
and so there's a big kerplunk. And but when Matt and I were sitting there, I told Matt, I was like, there is a man camped out down that peninsula with his
Yes, there
daughter,
was.
with
Yeah.
kids.
Yeah. I
And
talked to him.
I told Matt, I said, well, at least they're focused on us and not those kids over there.
Absolutely. Yep.
You know what I
Absolutely.
mean?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, and that guy doesn't pay very much attention either, because I was coming back from fishing and he was setting his trolling motor up, and there was no way he was right there there was no way for me to get around him without going through his stuff. I could have reached out and touched him. And that's when he realized I was there. And I said, "I'm sorry, sir. I was just coming down from fishing." But you're right. That's a good one. I'd forgotten about them. They were tucked back in there.
Mhm. That
Yep.
man, I hate to say this, I'm not trying to be rude, but he had zero situational awareness out
I
there.
think so. Okay, I'm glad you confirmed that, because he didn't when I saw him.
Well,
Yeah,
you and I both have children, okay, and I
right.
have a 12-year-old son, and I'm very particular about where I take him to go camping. Like I would never take him out to places that are going to be dangerous, that I know will be potentially dangerous and things
Yeah.
like that. I'll take him camping, you know,
Yeah.
when it's safe,
Yeah.
but places like that. Not saying that LBL, there are places that LBL I will take him. I'll take him to a cabin any day. Those are
Right.
great.
Yep.
You can lock the door, Mike. You know what I
There you
mean?
go. Yeah. Oh
And,
yeah. Oh yeah.
but you have to be careful when you have children out at places like that. And maybe it's just that man was not aware of the history of that place. Maybe.
Yeah. He obviously not.
Yeah. I don't know. It got dicey out there though. It got
Oh
real
yeah.
dicey. I was glad. Listen, by the end of the night, I was. As soon as Matt and I decided to finally turn in, he went to his tent and I went to my truck. I slept in the
Yeah.
back of the truck and locked the doors.
Yeah.
Um, and by the time I did that, I knew there was something looking in my truck at me, even with tinted
Right.
windows. But I felt good being in there and like going to sleep that night. And Matt said when he got in his truck, he heard a wood knock on top of that Indian burial mound, and
Right.
something moved its hand across his tent. So,
Wow.
and
Yeah.
Barton and Tish had the same thing. Something moved with their tent, like a hand on their tent too that night. So
Yeah.
yeah, they let
Yeah.
us know they're out there.
That's the only thing, probably the scariest thing for me is I used to be that guy. So the north-south trail on the north side there, I can't tell you how many nights I have hiked that and slept there. And on the riverbank, just put a tarp up and build a fire in front of me. And even with my son, have had my son in some spots, and we've heard the walk in, and we're just like, oh, it's a raccoon. Basically, we chalked everything up to raccoons.
Yeah.
But now I'm like, yeah, that wasn't a raccoon. And I'm just thankful, something worse didn't happen to us.
I know. We're all lucky. We're all lucky to get out of there in one piece anytime
Yep.
you go. And well, let's get into your encounter back in is it 2010? Is that when
It
you
was
and your family had a Bigfoot encounter out there? Tell me
no
what happened.
2020. It was May 10th of
Oh, 2020.
2020.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's it. Okay, that's where the 10 came in.
Yeah, there
Okay,
you go. It was
2020.
May 10th of 2020. Yeah, COVID was going on, and I always give Charlie Raymond with Kentucky Bigfoot Research Organization came out, and he has documented this. It's on his YouTube channel, and you can actually hear the screams and hear the knock. They stayed overnight, and they got this stuff recorded. It made me feel so much better. But yeah, so I had just gotten a boat the year before, a nice seaworthy boat. And we'd been out on the May 9th. We'd been out on the main lake and it was my family's first time out really since COVID. And we just had our infant daughter, I guess, in October. So October, November, she's 6 months old. And we had her with a little life jacket and a little floaty, and we'd like to get out on sandbars. There's a lot of sandbars out there. And so I had my, all my daughters with me. My son wasn't with us. He was already old enough and moved out. And um, we had such a great day that Saturday, so we wanted to go back on the Sunday. And the lake was just rough. It was colder. It was rough. So we go down to a little bay where you've got to drive down a 2 mile road to get down there. It was calm. We knew it would be calm in there, but the boat ramp was closed for COVID. So I had to put my boat in just a little spot where they put kayaks in, and I left it sitting in there. And we went, and we weren't there 30 minutes, and I could tell the fishing's going to be terrible. And so we just beached up on a little spot, and I built a campfire, and I'm cooking hot dogs. My oldest daughter went down the bank. The water was low enough to actually be able to fish off the bank. The other girl stayed in the boat, and I had heard people walking. Told the girls, "Hey, listen behind me. There's people walking." It would have been about a mile off the north-south trail. There is a trailhead on that same road, and it's not unheard of for people to be there, but it was odd. And we had come down that road. There was nobody parked. We had not seen any cars and not heard anybody come in. So I just heard them walking, mentioned that to the girls. Nothing came of it. We're getting ready to push the boat off. And then my daughter asked, what happened to them as we're loading up. And I said, I don't know. And about the time I'm ready to push the boat off, we hear a knock. Just like on the Bigfoot shows, just a knock. And what does that, Dad? And I'm like, well, they say Bigfoot does that. Let's find out. I look down, there's a stick. I knocked on the little tree that the boat was tied up to. And then down the bank, about 100 yards, we heard another knock. And they all look at me, and I said, look, I heard people up there walking earlier. There's some kids that have seen these Bigfoot shows. They're just out. Let's go see what's going on. And again, Charlie catches all this. Where the sun was coming through the canopy, there was just a spot where your eyes would naturally gravitate towards a spot. And I said, holy, there's Bigfoot. And they're like, what? And when I said that thing, it stepped back, and I start pointing, and I've got to spin the boat around so my wife could see it. And I'm kind of going into the bank. Well, it ran the opposite way that the boat was going, but it didn't know I was going to spin it in a circle. So now I'm going back this way, and it comes down a little gully and goes up. I saw we range found it. We range found it when we go back. And again, this is all on Charlie's video. I was 60 yards away from it, and then 30 yards away from it. And I saw its hand. I mean, I got such a great look at it. It moved so fast, the girls weren't ever able to track it. My oldest daughter saw trees shaking, which we now think, I thought when I was there in the moment that it was just pulling itself up. But I think there was two of them. And then as we drifted down the bank, I'm trying to decide, do I go fishing? Do I get out of here? How scared are we? What just happened? You're just kind of like shell shock. And they wanted to go, just go on out of there. And as I hit the motor, it screamed at them. And so my ears ring all the time, and I was looking away, and the motor was going, and it was over to my left. But at the same time, my wife and daughter go, that was a scream. Get out of here. And my wife actually said, get to the truck, get your gun, get us out of here. Because we weren't 70 yards from the truck going across the bay, and it could have easily come around, and gotten to where we were. And yeah, I got there, and I had a ticket. So the whole reason I parked there is I didn't want to move the federal barrier, and have somebody block my access. So I left my boat in there, and it was unauthorized use of a motor vehicle in an unauthorized space is 350 something bucks. And I just wrote on there, I saw Bigfoot on the memo line. And,
did it get you out of your ticket though?
It did not. No, they cashed it. And, it's, they don't do much of that. But there was finally a family was coming down the road and stopped at the barrier, and for whatever reason that made my wife feel better. But I mean, they were really, really, she was really, really scary, because that's the first time we'd heard that scream. Now if you want to hear a Bigfoot scream, you need to go out with my wife, because I don't know what it is, but she's batting 1,000 on having something yell at you. But that was, so that was the first thing. And I came home and I called around, and say Charlie Raymond called me back at 11 o'clock at night. And because of COVID, he wasn't, I believe it was October that he was actually able to come on down and do the investigation. But and then I spoke at an event he had there, and then went on Brian King Sharp's podcast and just got kind of involved. And and I tell people, I don't think they really want to hurt you. I think maybe the big rogue males do. They want to hurt you. And I'm not scared anymore. Especially Bigfoot's the most benign, least scary of what's out there now, really, in my opinion. But I definitely understand how people that have had these negative sightings and get scared and things haven't worked out, because it can go either way. I'm just glad I'm thankful that my dad raised me the way he did. And I've turned it into a positive, and my family has as well.
Mhm. Well, okay. Well, that all sounds pretty scary, and I can understand your wife wanting to get the heck out of Dodge
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
that, and the frustration of coming back to the truck with a ticket. That was
Yeah. 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 Well,
it'd make me so mad. I'd be like, okay, but
I
maybe it
think
wasn't so bad because you were happy to be back to your truck at that point.
it
Um,
was, and they don't make it easy in Land Between the Lakes. That map, that they update that map, and it's buried in layers of stuff. But be warned, if you go to Land Between the Lakes, like on the side roads, even the trace, you can park one vehicle length off of the trace or off of the roads. Any more than that, they can give you a ticket. There's places you can't go. So because I left my boat trailer sticking in that water, that's what did it. If I'd have pulled it up out of the water, it would have been fine. But
well, I can tell you from my experience, we had more than one man dressed in really, really nice, brand new hunting gear right out of academy or somewhere. I don't know where he got that stuff. Kind of, and they were definitely poking around, asking us stuff, and we were like, "Those are feds.
yeah,
those are game wardens." Like we just knew, like they get real nosy about what people are doing there. And
they
uh, and, I,
do.
and I was wondering, of course, they're pretending to be hunters and asking us if we had had seen any deer or turkeys or ducks or whatever. I don't know what they're talking about. And so it was kind of funny, like we like to joke about that because you can tell when people are just poking around trying to figure out what you're doing out there. And of course, Martin said we were hunting mushrooms or
Hey, there
something.
you go.
I don't know what
There
he
you
told me. We're
go.
hunting mushrooms. After me and Matt had just had that horrible night the night before, we got, you know, accosted by something out there. But they are kind of nosy, and it makes me kind of wonder, like, they were pulling up to one of the scariest places. I'm going to say you could camp at LBL where we were,
Yes.
and
Oh,
I was
yes.
wondering, do they know something that we're not supposed to know?
They do, they do, and I've shared with Barton actually. I don't advertise it because I'm convinced they're probably able to monitor this stuff right now. I've got pictures of the vans, of the fabled vans in Federal. I actually witnessed a group with a satellite communicator talking to two helicopters that were circling and connecting with the ground team, and I've got video and stills of that. I actually went to a spot. There's so many game cameras. You see these game cameras. I went to a spot and pulled up off the road and hiked and found not too far in from the road a skull about 10 feet up in a tree, a deer skull placed up in a tree. Took
Mhm.
pictures of it. Went back the next weekend and there were signs up, unauthorized vehicle access only. Do not enter. And
Mhm.
there's a spot where I don't share it because it'd be easy to find. I'm real open and honest with people. I tell people I'll come take you out. I don't. There's a couple spots I don't tell people about for two reasons: their safety,
Mhm.
and because the Bigfoot. There, I think I've got a range where the juveniles are, where they may be family groups living, and I don't want a bunch of yahoos running through there knocking and calling, out of respect for them. Other than that, I take people into all these places and share this stuff. And there's a spot where very heavily monitored with game cams. Now, here's the excuse. It is one of the spots that the back side of the bay closes. There's multiple of these in Land Between the Lakes. They close from November through March for migratory birds to not be interrupted, not be hunted. But they conveniently, you'll find these game cams, and there'll be piles of turtle shells, like ripped apart, eaten turtle shells under these in these areas. Like something's been sitting on a log eating turtles, and they want to monitor it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so and I've got friends. I won't disclose their names. Very credible people that have picked up radio waves and different types of magnetism associated with cameras and monitoring devices, but you can't ever find them.
Mm-hmm.
But
Oh,
you
yeah.
can pick that stuff up everywhere, but you can't see where it's coming from. So yes, they're monitoring heavily what's going on there.
Yeah, they're definitely monitoring. Martin put in the chat. He said that was that he had a radio on his truck. I mean, a lot of the guys, I go out with a lot of Bigfoot field researchers that are, we're all into the survivalist stuff. We got ham radios and all that, So
Yeah.
we're always keep an eye out for, fellow researchers and people with the same equipment that we have and stuff. But you
Yeah.
could tell this was somebody that was just poking around,
Right.
trying to find out what we were doing out there.
Yep.
And so, of course, like that mound that we were camped out by, Martin says, "Hey, Martin," he goes, "that was a temple mound with smaller burial mounds around us."
Yes.
And so it was a mound, and it's not marked, so people would not know that if they
No.
didn't know that.
Nope.
Yeah.
Nope. I was fortunate enough. So my mom was the assistant dean of the College of Humanities and Fine Arts at Murray State. So that's all your sociology, English, all the gen ed stuff. But she was friends with a gentleman who's passed away. His name was Kit Wessler, and he was actually in charge of the excavation of Wycliffe mounds for Murray State. And I had found some artifacts of the old Wadesboro community on my dad's place, and I got to know him through that because he always said, if he was not so busy with Wycliffe, he would love to rediscover Wadesboro because he shared this with me. Um, Before they crossed the Mississippi to St. Louis, in Wadesboro, in a little courthouse that is actually now sitting in the Murray City Park in Murray, Kentucky, that was where most of the land grants for people going west on the Oregon Trail were actually issued. At this little town, just this little town called Wadesboro. And my dad just used to happen to own that property. And but so I got in talking to Kit. I actually was he had pictures and stuff all over, but if you look, that's where I'm going with this. I ramble sometimes. If you just study existing known mounds and the common shapes, the serpent mounds, the hills, the temple mounds, and then you start walking around Land Between the Lakes, it's not a big stretch. It's not a big stretch to realize what's there or was there.
Oh yeah, they're everywhere, and it's not just the mounds. There are regular cemeteries
Yep.
with grave markers, and I
Mhm.
know Matt took us out to what he calls the witches cemetery.
Yeah.
That was wild. That was the last night I was out there, and I was hearing clicking in the woods, and
Yeah.
just it was a bad feeling out there.
Yep.
I wasn't a fan of that.
Yep.
Maybe pale crawlers or something. I don't know what that was. I never heard clicking like that.
Yeah,
Woods.
you never know. I had done some well, actually my first real dogman experience or something was after I had done the documentary. I guess so I had my son with me, but I'd gone out with Charlie Raymond again, and I'm sensitive. I've shared that, and so I was out. It's just me and Charlie, and we're sitting in a cemetery. I'll share it. It's Penninger Cemetery, and we're sitting there because it's an active, Sasquatch area. And behind me, I see the shadow person. And so I tell Charlie, I'm like, there's something behind us. And he said, Bigfoot. I said, well, we're getting to know each other. I'm sensitive. There's something paranormal behind us. We walked back there, and coincidentally, this was the only tombstone, and it said R. Bannister murdered on it. It had been cracked all the way through. we come to find out this gentleman was shot in the back of the head in the 30s through his window while he was eating. And so Charlie's looking at me like, okay, the only weird tombstone in this place is right where you coincidentally said you saw something. And I'm like, yeah, I'm just like that. So I took my son back the next weekend and I took my little K2 meter because I'd had an experience in Waverly Hills several years ago and had kind of gotten into the paranormal stuff. And this dude, he'll talk to you if it's him. He'll light up your K2 meter until you start asking him about being shot, and then he ghosts you. Pun intended. So we're walking. We're in that cemetery looking at other stuff, and there's a fence around it. And so we hear this growling and walking. My son and I do. And he looks at me and I'm like, all right, we know there's weird stuff out there. Let's just stay in the cemetery. And we walk to the back and the growling is now at the back. So we come back up to the front and go out the gate. And now on the other side of us, we hear the growling again. So we cut back across to go to our truck. And when we heard the growling behind my truck again, where it originally was, he got in the driver's side door. I said, Marcus, get in this truck, we're out. And so I didn't know at the time if that was just if Bigfoot would do that or what. But now that I've gone through the experiences I have, I'm pretty sure there was a dog man walking around that cemetery.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Their dogmen are known to protect. I guess you say protect.
Uh-huh.
Lurk around. Say lurk around cemeteries, and so that's one of the things that I think would be one of the main reasons they're out there. I think.
Yeah.
Well, but then again, there's also a lot of occult activity. I don't know if you've ever noticed this. I know you mentioned the deer skull that was up in a tree, at least 6 feet off the ground. I mean, we've gone out there. I've been told. I haven't seen all. I've only been out there 3 times. I haven't seen the whole area, but I've heard there's a lot of like witchcraft going on out there. You know, maybe Satanists doing rituals and things like that. It's pretty rampant out there. So it could be connected to like werewolf activity, or I don't know what.
In the 80s, so one of my ex-girlfriend was a practicing Wiccan in 1989, and so the Vampire Hotel. This is something I contributed to one of the documentaries as well. I knew Rod Farrell, and they called that place the Vampire Hotel because him and his group used to go up there and do the stuff they did and sacrifice animals and kittens mostly. But the reason they went there is because that was the established spot for that. And I can't tell you how many times, and this is again, one of the first places they took me was when it used to have 2 stories and some rooms and stuff. And right after Rod Farrell became popular and all that happened, they actually leveled it and took the access away. But we would see pentagrams and the burnt candles and what appeared to be blood. You'd find bones. You never knew which ones were probably just kids trying to play the part. But again, I know there was actually real witchcraft going on there in multiple, because we saw so much of it. So yeah, and I have to assume that's still going on, maybe on a lesser scale, but who knows?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, Barton and Letitia and Matt took me to not the Vampire Motel. I guess it's Hotel California, which is different from what I understand, right?
Yes, it is.
And that place was interesting too. That has not been leveled yet, but it had a really eerie energy to it out there. And of course, it's covered in graffiti. There were targets all over the walls where somebody had been out there shooting targets at the walls and stuff. It's just a weird feeling. That whole place is a very strange vibe.
That whole, that's up, the Mumbers is not too far from there. That whole area, I don't go up there much. I've been up there once just to say I was there. There's a St. Stephen's Church is up there, which is a really neat place. There's some peaceful feeling places up there, but it's surrounded by, you always go through just the eerie, heavy. Like I said, that's the spot. I've got this is the whole place mapped out here on the back behind me. I don't go up there much. Martin drags me up there. Y'all dragged me up there when you were, camping and stuff. But if it's up to me, I stay where the nice stuff is, preferably in my boat.
Man, I'll go in the middle of all the crazy stuff. I
I
don't mind.
know.
That's
I
why
know.
I don't drive 6 hours for nothing. I better get up there. Listen. I'm gonna hang out with Martin and Barton
Yeah.
and Matt.
Yeah.
They're gonna put me right in the middle of the danger zone, and I
They
love it.
are. They
And
are.
actually, Martin just said, "Thank you, Martin." He's still in here. He says at least 3 different covens operate in that area. Currently
Yeah.
in the area.
I'm sure.
So that's like witch covens, I guess, or
Yeah.
like
Which
satanic.
Coven? Yeah. Coven. Yep. Yep.
Oh gosh.
Yep.
Okay. Well, I've heard some stories. Okay, I've definitely heard some stories,
Yeah.
and so I think we should factor that into with like some of the werewolf sightings and stuff. I mean, I'm not convinced that some of these attacks that happened weren't werewolves. You know,
You're
people
right.
say dog man. I'm thinking werewolves.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. I don't know. I mean, but you and Martin saw some kind of dog man recently, right? I mean, I have you made a drawing. I know our friend Barton Nunley has done some wonderful drawings
Yeah.
of a lot of the cryptids that have been sighted around land
Yeah.
between the lakes and all over that part of Kentucky. But you did what I do. Anytime I have a sighting or an encounter, I draw it,
Yep.
and
Yep.
I do it immediately so I don't forget
Yep.
what I saw.
That's right.
And you did the same. Tell me about what happened with you and Martin.
Oh man. And see, this is one of those things. I tell people I don't know that I've been zapped before, but my buddies, I don't know if any of them are on here from high school. They're shocked at the amount of stuff I remember. Playing practical jokes on people at the restaurant when I was 16, and they don't remember it. I pride myself on my recall. I still have trouble remembering and ordering the sequence of events that occurred when Martin and Ray. There was another guy with us, Big Ray. Um, but so the order that they happened, because it just felt like something was. I don't know, but I would call it a werewolf. I don't get into the technicalities of the different types of dogmen, and what I saw looked like your stereotypical. If you've seen the movie Underworld,
Yes.
you've seen the Underworld series. What I saw was a misty, shadowy version, a mist turned into um, a werewolf shape, and then walked into a tree and disappeared. And what's weird about it, I didn't share it with the guys. And then Martin saw something over there where it was going, saw a fully formed one. And then these two screams and howls that came out at us, and we had the coyotes coming over. And the cool thing about this experience for me, and I was scared to death. I'll just say, I put my gun in my pocket, had my hand on it. I was one-handed trying to put this fire out and get out of there. But we had right there, if we'd have had a recorder going, you heard a Bigfoot scream that basically, I think, saved us and calmed everything down. But you had the coyotes, clear as day coyotes. Then you had these two howls that were just, I mean, I use the term American Werewolf in London stuff. That's two of them. And then more coyotes, and then I think the Sasquatch that we saw actually in the lights of the truck that was coming up the road. But yeah, so to answer what I saw, we're sitting there, and Martin knew this place had a history of this. He didn't tell me that. It was the only place we could get out of the wind the whole day. That wind was so terrible. And I'm a soccer coach for Kentucky for high school, and I've done it. I'm in my 26th year overall, 21st year as a head coach. So basically, from July through October, I'm 12 and 14-hour days for work. But then mid-October and then through March, I'm in the woods as much as I can be. When March hits and it warms up, then I'm in my boat all the way through June. But Martin and I don't get to see each other much during this time, and we hadn't got to see each other much. So he's like, "Man, just me and you. We're always taking people places. Both of us, we want to make people aware. We want to share this stuff, and we hardly ever say no to anybody." But then he and I both have done a lot just alone. We like our alone time, and then we certainly like to be together. So, man, we get into this spot, and it was so cool. And we built a little fire, and the wind was blowing off. And I had already told him I thought maybe something was watching us behind him, because I had been looking at him. He was to my left and not being able to see through the trees. And then at some point, there was a big bunch of light where I had not been seeing light for the last 30 minutes. And I realized something might have been standing there blocking the light. And yeah, so, I had shared that with him, and it was just starting to get dusk. And the smoke from the fire was blowing off to my left. And I look up, and as a big puff of smoke was blowing, this mist, I mean, I'm talking 30 feet behind, 30 feet most, this mist. And I'm thinking, how is that smoke going against the wind from this fire? And then it forms into the drawing I made, arms, head, tail, it forms into this form. And so that's the Bigfoot we saw earlier. It forms into this form and then walks into a tree. And I didn't send it to you, Jessica. I drew a picture of that, and I should have sent it to you. But it walked into a tree.
It walked into a tree.
It disappeared.
We get that a lot, Mike.
And I
get that reported a lot.
Yes, I had heard that, and I still try to stay a little skeptical just to ground myself. And I remember watching a video of a guy that was talking to what he was saying was a Sasquatch coming out of a tree, and it kind of looked like the Predator. If you've seen the Predator, where the Predator's cloaking, I could see where the tree was moving, and I'm thinking maybe this guy's seeing what he's seeing, but I just never believed it until, and now I've seen what I've seen. There's a new friend of mine I met up at the Golden Pond at the distillery, and I won't mention his name. I don't know if I have permission to do that, but he showed me a thermal image of what has to be a portal in a tree. It's one of the coolest things I've ever seen.
I met him too. He showed me that video.
Yeah. So he had heard my story. Look at this. Oh man. And they're very close in timing and proximity, the way I understand it. So yes, it walked into, and Martin always told me that. We got to know each other through the Small Town Monsters doc we were both on, and then we talked to each other probably more at the Monster Fest they had. And I love old trees, and I notice sometimes patterns of trees, and the big ones that haven't been logged, I call them old girls. I love cedar trees. Like cedar, I just love them. Cedar trees, you represent so much. They're so hardy. You can survive under them. There's just so much stuff that's good about a cedar tree. And in sharing that with Martin, he's like, well, they go into the trees. I'm like, come on, man, really? I didn't doubt it, but I'm like, no, I've seen it. They go into the trees.
Yep.
Yeah.
They do.
Yep.
The tree. There's a definite connection with the trees. Now, the first time I ever got zapped was in Alabama, and I got zapped. That was about a year or two ago. I guess about a year ago. Well, we were doing a little dogman investigation out there, and when my buddy Keith's a longtime field research friend of mine, and he's a wildlife biologist by former profession, and so he and I were walking up the trail and going up this top field, this location in Alabama, and where there's been a lot of dogman activity, a lot of Bigfoot activity. And we got up to the top of this hill, and when we got up there, he had his thermal out, and he was looking. He was like, Jess, there's this really hot spot on these two trees right here. And he was like, what could that be? Because it's not where the sun had not gone down in that direction. Like, it was almost like something had been leaning on those trees. And this is the middle of the night, by the way.
Wow.
But something had been leaning on both of those trees, or there was something else going on there.
Yeah.
And so we got up there, and then we realized that one of the guys that was with us, Harley Owens, had gotten zapped.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna say about 10 minutes after Harley had gotten zapped, I got zapped.
Wow.
And I got zapped twice that night. I got really sick, and a tree got knocked down in our camp and all that. But we were thinking like something might have come out of those trees.
Yeah.
Right there. That might have been like a portal or something.
Absolutely. And I always try to think of like going into the trees, like you meant it walked into the thicket. No, it walked into the physical trunk of the tree and disappeared. Yeah. No.
There's well, there's a cryptid. I just covered this a couple weeks ago. It's called the wood devil.
Okay.
And people describe these wood devils. They're mostly around like New Hampshire and New England on the East Coast.
Yeah.
And they say they look like they're kind of like a really skinny Bigfoot, but they blend into the trees.
Huh.
And it's almost like they become trees. They stand there and people think they are trees. It's
Yeah.
just kind of weird. Okay.
Wow.
But there's definitely some kind of connection. I mean, I've got a friend on my team, Tony Green. Tony's been on the
Mhm.
show. He said that his uncle was running from the cops a long time ago. I think they live in Georgia because he's from Georgia. But
Yeah.
the cop showed up at his house. He took off running. He went behind a tree and he came out. The other side was a dog and ran off in the woods.
Wow.
So they were harnessing whatever was, I don't know if it was some kind of voodoo thing or black magic or what. But
Wow.
he said when the cops left, the dog trotted out of the woods, went behind that same tree, and his uncle came out the other side.
Holy moly.
Yeah.
Man.
Something with the trees, Mike.
Yep. Yep.
I don't know. Yeah.
Wow.
It's magical. Well, I just had another report of a woman here not too far from where I live. She was talking about, and I haven't investigated this yet, but she just saw recently a shapeshifter that it was like a deer that turned into a dog that actually turned into a man. And she
Yeah.
said that I don't know if the doorway was in a tree, but it was right at some trees. She said that
Yeah.
he turned a doorknob and opened a door and walked in it. There's no door there usually,
Yeah.
but it's just weird. I think it's a
Yep.
portal. I think trees are portals. I think
Yes.
that's what it is.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I've shared it, one of the things that Brian King Sharp asked me about, and I had not shared with anybody ever since I've had these experiences. We've got some stuff going on our property now every once in a while. Usually coincides with my visits over there, but they're leaving stick structures and things. I've heard knocks. I've seen some weird stuff, and so my place is already haunted. I've got a Revolutionary War soldier buried in my backyard, and yeah, and his whole family. We actually named my youngest daughter after a 13-month-old girl that passed away. That's buried back in the cemetery. So we're at peace with them, and it's not a bad haunting or anything like that. But this is something different, and I know they're not walking down Highway 6880 to get over here. I mean, I've
Mhm.
seen lights and orbs. You get into that and you realize, I don't know, but I've got a lot of cedar. So when I had to clear this land, I've got 5 acres, and I cleared a good acre, a little over an acre of trees and stuff, and I left every cedar I could leave. So it's in a cedar grove. I don't know.
Well, Mike, you know what? I used to have some cedar beaded necklaces, and I
Yeah.
got them from a Native American shop in Atlanta. And I remember I just loved the way they look. I used to wear them all the time. I ended up selling all my beads in my shop. I have a jewelry shop, but I
Right.
ended up selling them because I thought, I've worn these enough. It's time to pass them on to someone else. But they're
Yeah.
made of cedar beads. Now, you know what those are called? They're called ghost beads, and they
Oh,
protect
really?
you. They protect you against ghosts and evil spirits.
I had no idea.
You
I had
didn't.
no
You haven't
idea.
made that connection.
Well, no, I didn't know that was a thing. Now, I always had like a cedar, like a cross. I've got one somewhere,
Mhm.
and I would make little crosses and things out of the cedar for that purpose because I knew they were protective. But I didn't know the. Are you talking about like the little round things that come off of the cedar tree?
I guess
Or
so. They call them cedar beads.
wow, I
And
check it out.
yeah, I really regretted selling mine because I was like, man, now I need them.
Yeah,
I need them a lot
absolutely.
more now than I did. Yeah, as soon as you said you were into cedar, you love cedar trees. I thought about that. I was like, man, there's got to be a connection because
Yeah.
cedar beads come from the cedar trees, and that's what people wear to protect against evil spirits.
Yeah. Well, my dad always made me learn how to survive. And, a cedar tree, you get in a cedar grove, it's actually warmer. You can get in a cedar grove and it'll be warmer than the temperature around you. Provides shelter from snow, rain, things like that. The wood burns when it's wet. It's very easy to get a fire started, even with wet cedar wood. The sap comes out as a fire starter. Then he would share with me just the protective energies of it and how the Native Americans thought that had some kind of power. So I'm gonna add that to my the ghost beads now. That's cool.
Yeah. If I find some, I'll send them to you. Okay.
Cool. Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah. I love those. Okay, so you've got paranormal activity going on at your house too, and
Yep.
well, okay, what? Okay, did we go in all the way on this dogman that you and Martin saw? Like that? That was that was pretty scary, right? Was
It
that?
it
It was like
was.
a misty dogman or something. Kind of.
Yeah, and then Martin, then when Martin said, "Okay, guys, I see one. It's coming this way. It's over there. It's right out of the campfire light." That's when I shared what I had seen. Then we start hearing the walking and the growls, and then stuff starts getting thrown at us at his car. And no, it was. I was just 1,000% ready to get out of there, and we did. Now, and and I knew he had been talking about. So my friend Ray had gotten there. He gotten a big flashlight, one of those 1,000 lumen light up the world.
Yeah.
And it was funny. Martin specifically said, "Okay, please don't turn that on because that can antagonize things." He kind of knew something was there before we did. Then what was funny about it? Um, he got over to the truck and he said, then all of a sudden I hear him say, "Hey Ray, light this place up." So he specifically, we needed the light. We needed to do something to hold them off. Um, yeah, I mean, it was like I said, I don't like talking about it. I have trouble remembering it. I've just, it's the only time I've really, and I don't think a gun would have done anything. It made me feel better. But I mean, and I explained to people the biggest issue was when I was building the fire, and I'm a former firefighter, so I am not catching the woods on fire. And there was no water source around. And when I went down into the grove to get some cedar to help start the fire, it was wet. I found a big wash tub, and when I pulled it, there's a big pile of dirt under it. And so I had told Martin, I'm not going to build this fire very big, and when we get ready to go, I'm going to fill that wash tub up with dirt, put this dirt on it, and cover the fire up because we were just in the middle of a thicket and leaves. Well, that's where the dogman was. And so now we're emptying water bottles, we're going back and forth, emptying canteens, soda cans, anything we can to get this fire out. But I'm like, I'm not going down there. I'm not going down there to let maybe I would let the place burn. I don't know. But we got the fire out, and like I say, we got out of there, and then I got followed home that night. I got followed home by law enforcement. So,
What?
yeah, oh yeah.
Tell me about that. What happened? All the way to where you live?
So yeah, so what happened was earlier we started hearing Martin and I started hearing shooting when we pulled into this place. Blocking the road was a four-door silver grayish pickup truck, and very brash to block the road. But duck season was in, and it was probably quarter mile to half a mile on down there to a bay. Well, we start hearing shooting, and I mean booming shooting. And so we're already like, what's going on down there? We heard the helicopters. They were doing the hog eradication that they say they're doing. But I there's no way what we were discussing was how many hunters are down there hunting, because to shoot that many rounds that fast, you can only have 3 shotgun shells in your shotgun when you're hunting. There was just no chance. It would have taken 20 duck hunters to be down there to replicate this amount, and we had heard that multiple times. So the drawing you showed, in fact, as we were getting packed up, that truck came up the road, and that's when we saw the Bigfoot at the field. So that's what I saw. I drew what I saw when I looked over to my right. We saw the Sasquatch running again into the cedar grove. So what we think happened was there was a kill team. They were down there probably killing some dogmen or a rogue Bigfoot. We think they pushed up into where we were, and they were really mad at us. I think the Sasquatch was roaring at them to say, "Look, there's still a helicopter and some government guys that just killed a couple of your buddies here. If you go after these people, they're going to come down on us. Just chill out." That's really what I think happened. When I got out, I got on the road and put an asterisk by that. When I had taken the NCI guys out, we walked all around this place we were at, and sitting in the back of this field was a brand new white Chevrolet pickup truck, 4-door, tinted windows, black antennas on it, unmarked, not a poacher's vehicle. Something going on. Um, so back to that night, I finally get out on the road and I notice this truck coming up on me. And it's funny, I drive my Jeep really, really slow. Everybody passes me in my Jeep Wrangler. And so it comes up on me, but then it stops and it followed me all the way into Katie's. And then it was well lit area. It goes off into 5-star and it was a white, unmarked 4-door Chevrolet, tinted windows, and almost the exact truck I had seen a few weeks ago before. Didn't think much of it. I just thought maybe he just wanted to ride my butt. Maybe he liked my Jeep. I get into Wendy's. I come out of Wendy's and a state trooper immediately gets on me. I go under I-24. The state trooper pulls off to where they usually get people, where they usually sit for. And I thought, okay, cool, that happens. That's not true. And then again, here comes another vehicle coming up. Right beside me, within 5 miles of my house, is a Forest Service, Federal Forest Service law enforcement truck. And it got right beside me, slowed down to let me know it was there, got in front of me. I do have a picture of fuzzy taillights. There's no chance I was getting my phone out and getting a ticket. But when it got by me, I got one picture and then it never got out of my sight. And then I turned off to go to my house. So.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that is sus, as my son says. That's sus right there.
Yeah.
Suspicious.
Yeah.
That's
Very
wild.
sus.
There's
Very
no
sus.
reason. I mean, you were not on any kind, you were not in a national forest. You were not in a park. You're in Katie's, okay? And I know exactly what you're talking about. I've gone there enough to know that place like the back of my hand now.
Yeah.
It's not very big.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nope.
But there's no reason for them to have followed you like that far.
No.
Unless there was a reason.
Well, and what's funny is, so I actually called Martin, and then he reminded me of, before we had gotten to this spot, we had been up there. We met at the Hunter check station. You get cell phone service there. I think we had done a phone interview or something together, and it's right there. There's the visitor center there. There's some cabins that I guess the federal employees use. So we had been seeing a lot of law enforcement presence, but we weren't really. They were doing prescribed burns, they were doing the hog eradication, and we were there close to the visitor center. But at one point, he called me and he said, "Hey, did you see that that Forest Service guy almost hit me? He was behind me in his Suburban." And I said, "No." And he said, "I think he was looking back. I forget the law enforcement term." He told me, he said he was checking your license plate. He was trying to look back and see your license plate, and he used some term. I don't remember it. And I said, I didn't catch it. So for whatever reason, he had noticed hours earlier that they were interested in my Jeep. I don't know why. I'm not causing any trouble. But anyway.
We don't think we are. We don't think we're out there causing any trouble. We're out there. That's why, I mean, we get a lot of attention. I've only been out there 3 times personally. And the amount of attention that we got out there, that second time, right, the weekend that I met you, when you came out there, meet Barton, there was a lot of attention. A lot of people were driving down that way. That's a dead end.
Yeah.
And where we were. And of course, it's a great camping spot for the normies. Okay, for the normies, I guess, until 2 a.m. Till 2 a.m. By the way, it happened the second night too. So it was like the first night we were there, we got ambushed. The second night, I was so tired, I went to bed at midnight. By 2 a.m., Anna, Kevin, Barton, Tish, Matt, they got ambushed again right on the dot at 2 a.m.
Wow.
Not as bad as me and Matt got ambushed, but it was still a little ambush.
Man.
By something. Yeah, but the amount of attention was a little concerning.
Yeah.
Of all the people coming out, and the people just getting out of their trucks, wanting to come talk to us and stuff. That's, it's normal. I go out in the woods a lot. It's normal for a park ranger to drive up and just say, hey, and it's okay. We're very nice to everybody.
Yep.
And, it's not uncommon, but we did get a lot of attention there though. Yep. And you said kill team. Okay. That's something that comes up occasionally on my shows, and we've had teammates. Let's just say my teammates have been out in the woods in North Carolina. Let's just give that for instance.
Okay.
North Carolina, they were up there several years ago, and there were men coming out of the woods with full SWAT team uniforms on, with their ARs and whatever kind of other weapons they had on them.
Yeah.
And the guys were like, "What are y'all doing out here?"
Yeah.
And they said, "We're doing the same thing y'all are doing."
Right.
And they're out there looking for Bigfoot and stuff, I guess. But like, I just thought that was weird. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think I'm sure it happens. We hear a lot about that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
I have found, and this is the first time I've shared this, and there's probably people that will have had this. I guarantee you there's some duck hunters. So you get a lot of people that walk in and duck hunt. So you really find a lot of shotgun shells. You find a lot of shotgun shells. They squirrel hunt, they rabbit hunt, they bird hunt, they duck hunt. But with the exception of the range, the actual gun range in LBL, I have found on the bank of the river many times piles of semi-automatic firearm, high-powered rifle, different cartridges. 223 most of the time, so that's your AR-15, and you just wonder. You just why somebody said that's not the place you would go to target shoot.
I mean, I would joke around, by the way, that I would be, if I ever disappeared, you will find a pile of brass.
Yeah. I'm with you. I'm with you. You know, there's a small window where you can carry center fire stuff. It's February, the month of February. You can carry center fire weapons to hunt coyotes and stuff with. A very small window, and the brass I found was not that old, and it was not February. So I don't know.
Oh my God, David was there when that happened. David Pardue is my buddy up in North Carolina. He does a lot of research around the Uwharrie area and the Uwharrie National Forest. He said they were in full battle regalia. Comms in the works. Yeah, he was there. I think him and Bob. I think Bob had told me about that. Grumpy. But anyways, they're out there. They're potentially doing, military drills out there. They could be having kill teams. I fully believe they're out there. They're fully aware of the dogmen and the Bigfoots. I mean, we've had eyewitnesses. I've had people that come on my show talking about these dogman breeding programs and werewolf breeding programs, and Bigfoot breeding programs, and they people swear they've been a part of this stuff, and it happens, and that our military utilizes them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, when we were out there the last time I was there, we were driving out to that witches cemetery, and it was like 3:00 in the morning. It was so late. Something threw something at our truck, at Matt's truck.
Yeah.
While we were driving down the road, we were hearing men screaming and moaning in the woods. It was just weird.
Right.
And we started noticing that there were like military. I'm going to say military, but it was like some kind of water containers and stuff were like kind of strategically placed around there. Like they were doing some kind of, maybe kind of military exercises or something in the woods. And it kind of, that's not uncommon for national parks and stuff like that. But I think some of the guys got out and checked, and they had it was like Gatorade or something, out there. And it kind of made us wonder, like, what kind of exercises are they doing out here?
Yeah.
The LBO.
Who knows? But like I said, they're there and they do it, and it's more common than and it's actually a great place if you're trying to do things discreetly. And the major special operations hubs, really, as far as airborne goes, are Fort Bragg and Fort Campbell. I think there's some stuff that goes on in Fort Benning, Georgia. But Fort Campbell is a major special operations, and that's where you're going to get the discreet incognito. What better place to practice that than LBL, that has a lot of tourists and a lot of things. So I think they're there more than we think.
A lot of appetizers for them to eat on. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
A lot of food, and that's one thing that I kind of get upset about, because we have all these missing people across our national parks and other places, just missing people that go missing, and not a trace is ever found of some of these people. just vanish into thin air. And my team, one of my teams, has video evidence of a portal, and teammates sent into this portal, and their heat signatures disappear. It kind of looks like an apparition, but they call it a portal. They disappeared, and then they walked out of it, and their heat signatures reappear. This isn't a national park, okay?
Wow.
And it made us wonder. Both of those teammates have died, actually.
Wow.
And there is some speculation that it might have had something to do with the radiation,
maybe
what they experienced out there.
Yeah.
But are these people just like walking into portals and stuff out there too? And is the military or the government or some agency involved in that out there?
I don't know. You know, it's funny that I actually got to watching Barton's channel because I thought he was into arrowhead hunting, and I don't know that I'm giving anything away for people that have seen him, but he would start a lot of his videos with just them walking the creeks. And then all of a sudden he would plug in with a story he had heard or somebody had contacted him with, and he would share that. And one of them was about the underground, the tunnels and things that run underland between the lakes and under both lakes. And I have experienced one of the places that is in Callaway County. The legend was if you went down here, and I think they've since closed it, I would have to double check, but if you went down here, you would quickly see a black Suburban and people asking you what you were doing. And I have witnessed that. I've been coming out of this place, me and my son, because I thought it would be a good fishing spot, and met the black Suburban coming down, and then had them follow me out. I used to live out there. There were already tunnels that were part of the Underground Railroad. There's one that's visible still in a place called Blood River at summer or at Winter Pool when the water gets low. And there's a house that I forget. It's probably a good half a mile. That there's places in this ground that are very conducive to tunneling. So that, I hear in Barton's story, and I'd always heard that. And then, I have shared, there's something going on under that lake. I've hit something in my boat. I see the rogue waves and the disturbances. There's something going on underneath that lake that's causing the water to be disturbed. I don't know. The rumor was that there's a place in Callaway County that you can actually park and hear the trucks going under there, and that's why those SUVs show up and run you off, because you can hear what's going on under the ground. I have never personally heard that, but it wouldn't shock me a bit.
Well, Mike, every place that I've investigated, pretty much, I think there's an underground base or something.
Yeah.
And even that spot, there was a residential area in North Tennessee, up in Whitleyville. The couple that lived there, who was having all this cryptid activity on their property, and their neighbors were having cryptid activity and paranormal activity. They said their bed would shake at night because it felt like a train was going under their house.
Yeah.
Or something.
Yep.
And so there's all sorts, and that's on like Choctaw land out there, by the way. But there's definitely some kind of military presence. Now, my good friend who passed away several months ago recently, Mark Maychek, used to come on the show with me all the time. And he's known by many as Cryptidville here on YouTube and stuff. But Mark would tell me things about, he did a lot of research at the LBL, and he was talking about seeing UFOs coming in and out of that lake.
Oh, I tell you what, we saw, and Martin got the best view of this, but thankfully, I'm part of, we started a group, me and a bunch of my friends, we all co-founded. Elizabeth Sparks came up with the idea, and we just ran with it. A bunch of us that would go out with different groups and expeditions, we found ourselves just getting together in the fall and started a group chat, and it's so awesome, but we're like, we need a name and stuff. So we kind of came up with what we call the Pathfinders. And we're really, between October and March, we're really active, and we invited other groups in, and we've actually gone out on a mission and we do some coordinated stuff. We'll take a mile or two radius, and it's really a neat thing that we do. But in being there in Colson Hollow one night, the sky just lit up over us. and there's no real explanation for it. We tried to. I saw the flash. The flash probably lit up 4 or 5 miles. It was unreal. Martin actually was the only one sitting where he could see that it. I believe he was talking about it was coming up, and then in, and then down. Um, it wasn't a meteor. It wasn't anything. It was incredible. And we've seen these. My son's actually got a video somewhere, unless he's deleted it, even at my property, of a ball of light coming, stopping, and then just shooting off really, really low, not way up in the stars. So, who knows what's going on? Again, the military base is right there. But I have heard stories about that stuff, and I've seen the orbs. You see the orbs all the time. I've never seen one personally come out of the water, but I know there's something going on under the water. I'll tell you that.
Oh yeah. Well, I personally, okay, because I do a lot of research at these national parks and stuff, and I'm
Yeah.
actually very close to Fort Benning down in Columbus, Georgia. One of my research areas is we call it the Troop Herd Corridor. And there's a lot of dogman activity down there, a lot of Bigfoot activity. My son saw his first Bigfoot down there, by the way.
Okay. Okay.
But it's also known for their mass alien abductions that have military involvement. Okay.
Mhm.
And a lot of us do believe there's something going on. There's some connection
Yes.
with the military bases.
Yes.
And it seems as though there are a lot of big lakes in a lot of these national parks. There are a lot of man-made lakes, Mike. They're man-made. Okay. That means they've been flooded out. They've run off everybody through eminent domain. The land is traumatized. There's been disputes. There's been just trauma, bloodshed, all that stuff. And they're covering up our history.
I'm with you.
Those lakes.
Yep.
Okay.
I'm with you.
That's what they're doing. Listen, I'm going to start some kind of movement of like anti-man-made lake movement or something.
Okay.
I love them. Listen, I love going to the lake. We go to the lake in Alabama all the time. Okay.
Yeah.
We go all the time. So I love the lakes, but there's also something sinister going on there.
I believe it. I believe it.
Yeah. Pyramids and all that. Ancient Egyptian settlements. Temples. Well, I want to hear about something that your father encountered out at is it the land between the lakes, or is it near the land between the lakes?
No, it's in a place. It's a little spot called Energy Lake, where they basically put a dam and a road across a bay, Crooked Creek, and so they've made there's Energy Lake. There's a nice campground on it. There's Hematite Lake that's got the nature center. There's Honker Lake that's actually just a recreational center. The old Empire Farm was over there. They did a Eagle rehab over there. The Silo Overlook was not too far from there. So that was just a place where they really wanted the recreation to focus. And we fished on that place. I mean, I think I went there for the first time in 1990. And I fished there. It's not getting as good. It used to. What was cool about it is when the lakes would flood in the spring. In the spring, a lot of the fish move shallow because they want to spawn and make babies up shallow, right? So if there's a flood, a lot of the fish would dump in this place, and then when the water receded, they'd be trapped in this little lake, and it would reload. Well, it washed out several years ago, and so now they keep it at the same level as the lake, and it gets overfished. So, but for a while, man, we fished there. That's why my dad was there. He's more of a fisherman than I am. He would fish a place out. I know he's not listening. He's in bed right now, so I can say that. But
don't give his fishing spots away where all his good crappy beds are and stuff. Don't do that. Okay.
Oh man, it was some good fishing. I'll tell you about my dad. The neat thing about my dad, he's had a stroke. He had a stroke several years ago, and he's recovered well. He's not able to get out and do much now, but he's still very aware. And he was one of the original members of Delta Force. Colonel Beckwith, the guy that started Delta Force, I called him Uncle Charlie. There's no telling how much secret stuff I saw between the ages of 2 and 5, because Daddy would say during meetings, they'd be talking about like the Iran hostage rescue mission, and they'd be talking about stuff, and Colonel Beckwith would have me on his knee bouncing me.
Oh, wow.
So and my dad's in the book. Colonel Beckwith wrote a book just called Delta Force, and then a guy, Staff Sergeant Haney, wrote one called Inside Delta Force. My father's in both of those. They call him Smitty. Um, so it was neat. He would tell me stuff, and you always think, are your parents? And I'm setting this up for you. You always think, are your parents BSing you? Are they messing with you? Are they exaggerating? Well, I worked with in tobacco with a guy that was retired from the Kentucky State Police, and he worked with the FBI in doing the drug eradication task force that they used to have. And as he was talking in the tobacco patch, I knew a bunch of the acronyms. And when he said the acronym CQB, which I knew is close quarter battle, he finally asked me, he's like, have you served? Did you do anything? And I said, no, my dad did. And in talking about that, he was like, wait, Captain Smith, I, I have read training manuals that your dad has written on CQB. And so I'm like, cool. When my cousin was deployed in Afghanistan and Iraq, they called Delta the D boys if they're around, if there's a group of them in your base or with you. And he was like, man, I got to hang out with some of these D boys. They all knew your dad and had been trained on his stuff. And then even one more. I ran group homes for adults with special needs, and for 5 years. And there was one family that the guy lived at his house with his parents. I took him out every Saturday to go play golf and get stuff at Hardee's. And once we got to know each other, Miss Andress said, wait a minute, you're Mike Smith's son. I said, yes, ma'am. Your grandfather, your great grandfather, Tater Digger Smith, was the mail carrier. And when my husband was deployed in World War II, he would make sure, even on Sunday, if he got a letter, I got it that day. He would bring letters to church. And then she says, you have no idea how hard a life your dad had.
Wow.
Because my dad always told me when he was 8 that his father tried to kill him with an axe, went on a drunken rage up in Ohio. My dad said he went, got the spare tire from the car, rolled it to the service station, sold it, bought a bus ticket, and came down to live with his grandparents in either Callaway or Marshall County.
Oh my gosh.
So I'm saying all this to say I'm fixing to tell you an unbelievable story, but my dad, not only do I think he's never lied to me, everything he's ever told me, I've had validated from outside sources, and he doesn't know. I haven't shared those stories with him.
Wow.
So there is a spot we used to fish. It's actually on the Crooked Creek side of Energy Lake, and we would wade out. And there used to be a pipe, a big culvert that kind of drained this area when things would overflow, and then the lake would actually back up into it, and it would just be up under the road. That's the part that washed out and they've taken away now. But we would wade out in this ditch and catch all kinds of fish, and I put him onto it, and he used to go by himself a lot. He would get off work early after he was out of the military. And he didn't tell me till a few years ago. He said he just got that feeling like something was watching him. And he looked over, and laying in that pipe was what he thought was the head of a Komodo dragon. It had very long claws. He said it had big red eyebrows. He remembers the eyebrows and the spikes on it. And he said it looked at him and it pulled itself out and went right under the water. And he could see that the tail, it was big, 6, 7 feet long. And then he said it got out in front of him, and he's about waist deep in the water. And it rose up and looked at him. And again, Komodo dragon, arms, big claws. He said he thinks it had legs that it was standing on, but they never got out of the water. And then it dove back down, and he saw the tail flick like an alligator tail, and it swam off. And he would not wade out there again. And he discouraged me from wading out there again. In fact, I remember one day I was out there wading, and he stayed on the bank and just said he didn't feel good, back hurt. He would make some excuse, but later on in life he confided in me that he was sitting in there in the truck with his firearm ready to go in case that thing raised up or tried to get me. So he was yeah, but yeah, he saw it, and I believe him. I do believe him. And it's weird. again, Martin, so I asked Martin one day just on a whim. I didn't give him any details. I just said, "Have you ever heard a story about some type of lizard man or something?" And he told me a story, and it happened to be on Barkley Lake, not too far north. And he described almost identically what my dad saw. And and now I will tell you again, I have seen all of a sudden watch some kind of show, some kind of where alligators and crocodiles. I remember one I'm thinking of where the thing fell off the bank and started going. Hippos, when hippos come at you underwater and you see the push of the water before they rise up. I see that multiple times a year on Kentucky Lake with no explanation, no boat within earshot, within miles. There's the glass calm lake, and then all of a sudden here comes a huge wave, like something big underneath has been moving. So yeah.
I saw. I actually okay. So that's interesting because when we were at the last time we were there, I got to see at the Golden Pond Distillery. Shout out to Jimmy
Right.
and
Yep.
his mama and everybody out there. But when we were driving after the distillery, I think we'd been there that day on Saturday, and I was riding with Matt, and Barton and them were in front of us. I think it was that same time. It might have been that same weekend. Uh,
Hmm.
but but we all saw something in the water as we crossed the bridge. It was something very large. I'm just like, I mean, I thought maybe it could be a submarine or
Ex-
something.
exactly right. And Barton told me about that. I wasn't going
Mhm.
to share it because I didn't know, if it's not my story. But
We've
yeah,
already talked about it. I haven't
okay.
talked about it too much on the show, but
Yeah.
but we did see that. Barton and I have talked about it a good bit.
There's something under it, so, and I've shared before, I hit something in the channel in my boat that pulled the back end of my boat underwater. Yeah, I've said every time I've shared it, if you were that guy that was in the pontoon boat that I had just passed and just checked on me, please contact me because I'd like to. You could verify I had just passed a pontoon boat, and I mean it hit it pulled my engine. I had it trimmed all the way down, so if you know boats, my engine was actually kind of like this, and it pulled it all the way up, pulled the bottom end down, threw me over the thing. I just got back and hit my bilge pump and got in the front of the boat, and luckily it's full of foam and it popped up, and there was blubber churning in the wash in the back, big paper plate sizes of blubber, no blood. And
Like,
that guy stopped. He's like, "What did you?" He's like, "Are you okay? What did you hit?" I thought maybe it was a trot line or a net or something. No damage to my prop. I cut through the back of something, but I hit it hard enough that it pulled a large heavy boat under the water.
wait, so you said blubber, like this was like pieces of meat, like an animal, like fat.
Yes, yes, like fat. It was like fat. Yep, fat and blubber, just kind of churning. And, and Martin asked me when I told him, he's like, "Hey, did you get a sample of it?" I said, "No, no,
Oh my
I did
God.
not.
That just
I did
reminded me
not."
of the Kentucky meat shower they had back in the 1800s or something,
Yeah,
early 1800s.
yeah,
Just
yeah,
some random meat falling from the sky. You got some
yep.
random. I mean, there could be anything in that lake. That lake is big enough to be looks like the ocean almost. Like it's a huge river, a big lake right there. Something real big could live down there.
It gets really, really rough. I mean, you people don't understand. And in the days of chat rooms and the threads that they used to post, I used to night fish a lot. So this was back in the late 90s, 93 to probably 2000. I would night fish a lot because I worked at a factory and we got off late, and multiple stories of rogue waves and a calm night and people deciding to go out. In fact, we always stayed in the bay we were in because that was a big thing. A guy came out of a bay, and a wave just swamped his boat on
What?
on a on a moonlit, calm, clear night. The wave was just there.
It's like a
So
tsunami. A
yeah,
tsunami at the Lake Berkeley or Land Between the Lakes right there. That is
yeah,
crazy. That doesn't
yep.
make any sense.
No, it doesn't. And so I don't know this guy, but in us talking about it on this, I forget, you used to have threads. I remember a guy talking about seeing a Bigfoot at Red Hollow. A bunch of deer ran by him. He was wading in the creek, so you'd have different fishing chat rooms, and that's how you would share information. And this guy was talking about a Bigfoot came running at him. was chasing these deer. I actually remember that now that I think about it. But it was on this thread that we had all read, and we didn't know the guy, but he was adamant. A rogue wave. What do you call it? A rogue wave. Yeah.
Wait.
Yep.
Well, now, okay. First of all, I'm never going swimming out there ever. Nobody has to worry about me doing that.
Okay.
We have Lake Lanier here in Georgia, and Lake
Yeah.
Lanier is up in North Georgia. It's Gwinnett County, I think, and that's
Mhm.
the most haunted lake in the world. One of them, and I used to go
Yes, I've
swimming
heard
there
that.
all the time.
Yeah.
But that's another man-made lake where people were ran out of the
Yep.
area. They eminent domain took an entire town. Mostly, it was actually like African American community was wiped
Yeah.
out from that, and it is very haunted. It takes the lives of many people every year. People drown there constantly. I mean,
I
it's
have
like
heard that.
it's bad,
Yes.
but so does the land between the lakes too. The lakes out there that's very similar to Lake Lanier. The last time I went up there, the Wednesday before I got there, a man jumped off his boat to go swimming, and he never surfaced.
That's okay. That's the one I was going to talk about. So there are some every year. There's several which are explainable. It's just a tragedy. But that one in particular, we still don't know about that. So like the first one this year was in Jonathan Creek. The first one was actually my former math teacher from high school.
Oh no!
And and so we all knew he was a really bad diabetic, and he just evidently he got his sugar low and he fell over. But this one, you're right, they were both going to swim. I can't remember if they were swimming to the dock or they were swimming back out from the boat, but it was a boyfriend and girlfriend, husband and wife, and like the lady looked back and the guy was gone. And he's still gone. There was no body recovery with that one, the way I understand it. Yep.
Well, Mike, okay, knowing what you know about this, okay, I said I'm not. Of course, we have people that jump in these lakes, and there are towns underneath the water. So we've got road signs, we got church steeples, we've got buildings, we've got road signs and cemetery gravestones and all that. There's stuff
Hmm.
down there. So if you
Yes.
go head first into the water, there's a chance you're going to break your neck on something or get caught in
Oh,
a tree limb. You know what I mean? Like trees
oh,
under the water. And so it's feasible these people are getting caught in trees and stuff. Go down
it
there. But
is. It
but
is. And I'll tell you what else. A lot of people don't realize that will fool you and I do most of my stuff on Kentucky. Barkley's way more dangerous. Barkley Lake is way more dangerous. Barkley Lake, there's places you could be standing knee deep in water. On that bridge you cross by the distillery, there's places out there where you can be knee deep and you would think it would be 20 feet deep. But then if you jump forward 3 feet, you're going to drop down about 40 feet off a cliff. Those cliffs the distillery sits on, if you've been that way, that's
mhm.
what that channel looks like. So there's the bays on the LBL side, especially, you have to enter the bay on the south part because all of them have long gravel peninsulas. And it looks like the mouth of the bay. Now, a lot of these are exposed, but at Summer Pool, it looks like it's just should be 20 feet of water. And there are a lot of people that if they beach there and it's only 3 feet deep, when you jump off, you're hitting rock and gravel. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or foundation or something else.
Or a lizard man.
Yeah, well, maybe. Hope not, but yeah, evidently, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, your dad said that he saw one of the most remarkable things he remembered were the red eyebrows.
Yes.
That's not
Yes.
normal. Okay, so to me, that I've heard too many stories about people seeing reptilians, real eyewitness accounts, and to me, that sounds like some kind of reptilian humanoid.
Yes. And he always thought that it had hind legs that it could probably walk and move on. And Barton drew a really good picture of it, or used AI to generate a very good. And I went back and showed my dad, and he just said the claws were actually bigger and blacker than what Barton had showed. But other than that, he said it was spot on. That's exactly what it was.
Oh my
And
god!
what's weird about that is then I had a time slip. I believe I was part of a time slip at Energy Lake not too long ago as well.
Missing
And
time.
well, no,
No.
and it was so weird. Is Barton was Barton had just posted. I think he and Martin are the key to all this strangeness. He had just posted on his Facebook when I got home. So I'm walking. A lot of times, even though I've got a boat, I don't have time or I don't want to fool with putting it in. And I do like to hike. So I had walked to Energy Lake and walked down there and fished the bank. And then I decided, instead of walking back along the bank and going up and down the hills, I wanted to cut to a spot I'd never been on because I'd gotten on this old road and I wanted to see if it ran into the paved road because there's a lot of tons of old roads there. Like we're talking horse and buggy roads. A lot of the gravel roads that you've been on, that people are on, they're logging roads and they're more modern. If you go a bit further, you'll find these old, like I say, horse and buggy paths.
Yep.
And I had found one of these, and I'm walking up this hill, and I look over, and there's a man that looked like Davy Crockett. He's holding a musket. He's got a dog beside him. And he's looking out at the lake. And didn't have a hat on. He's without the coonskin hat, but he had the period. So I'm thinking this is a reenactor, or there's something going on at the campground, or maybe he's squirrel hunting. But this was a no hunting zone. So I told myself, I'm gonna get to the top of the ridge, and then I'm gonna watch this guy. And when he comes to me, I'm gonna tell him, hey man, this is a no hunting area. But when I got to the top of the ridge and looked again, he was gone.
It sounds like you saw a ghost. Actually, it doesn't sound like a ghost. It sounds like you got like in between some kind of like dimensional thing.
I see ghosts all the time. I wish my wife was still in here. It was not. It was not a ghost. It was a man and his dog standing there looking at something. And so when I get home, I notice on Barton's Facebook he had posted something about with a similar picture of a guy, and I thought, I just saw this today. I saw this guy, and I called Martin immediately, and then he shared that there have been some Forest Service employees. People don't know about Martin. He's been in that park talking to people that are there every day. Law enforcement guys stick together. They're tight knit. Doesn't matter if you're federal, state, local, whatever. They respect each other and they share stuff, and they know they can trust each other. And he had mentioned that there have been reports. All I'll say is there have been reports in that area of weirdness involving being in a different time. That's the way he comforted me. He's like, well, Mike, I'll tell you, you're not alone. That has happened before in that area. So
it happens. Listen, it happens wherever there's trauma in the land. I'm telling you, it's from the battlefields. It's from the territory. Like Indian wars and things like that. It happens more often than you think. I've had people that came on my show that talked about thinking they were walking up to a Civil War reenactment, and it was real people doing with real injuries, and they thought, man, this is so real. It turns out there was no Civil War reenactment that day.
Right. Exactly. Yes. That's what it was. Like I say, that was as sure as I'm sitting here, that was a guy. I was getting ready to talk to him, and really his dog was cool. I was like, I can see this dog. It's a cool looking dog. So yeah. Yep.
There's actually a case recently from North Carolina. There was a gentleman who called into 911, and he said that he had just seen an injured man on the side of the road at 3:00 in the morning, and he said he was on the phone with 911 with the dispatcher, and he described him as looking like he was wearing a Civil War outfit with blood all over him, and then you can hear something jump in his truck, and he starts screaming to the 911 dispatcher. And you can hear him like take off in his truck, and then he slammed on his brakes, and whatever had jumped in the back of his truck went flying over the cab of the truck. It was like a pale crawler looking thing.
Wow.
And it was right after he had seen that ghost. It was like a ghost it turned out to be like a Revolutionary War battlefield right there where he was.
Wow.
But it was like a 2-for-1. He got me crazy. He saw this man. He said it looked like just like a regular person.
Yeah.
Covered in blood. Man. Yeah.
That's crazy. It is.
Yeah, I'm glad that he was able to get that thing out of the bed of his truck, I guess. But
yeah, no kidding.
It's crazy. I mean, I've even been to a Civil War battlefield up at Pickett's Mill in Georgia, not too far from the Etowah Indian Mounds, and I took my son there for a Halloween storytelling walkthrough Halloween thing in the woods on the battlefield. And as we were leaving that night, the cannon started firing.
Oh.
and the cannons were not firing, but the ground was shaking and everything. So there
Right.
were multiple cannons firing. I think that anywhere that has like trauma like that,
Yeah.
mostly battlefields and places like the LBL,
Yeah.
it's gonna be very haunted. And
Yeah.
it's almost like, they say time is just an illusion, right? And we're
Yeah.
living the past, present, and the future all together right now.
Exactly.
And you just get to see it at places like the LBL.
Wow. Yep. Yep. Evidently. Yeah.
Evidently. Well, what did your dad think that reptilian thing was? I know he didn't talk about it too much, right? But
Yeah.
what were his thoughts? Did it have some kind of military connection or anything to him?
Yeah. He doesn't know. He doesn't know, and he doesn't know why. He said then, what's funny about my dad? Um, he was totally against this stuff. He was very much he was very Christian man, but he was very much explainable, or if written in the Bible, the supernatural stuff he wasn't into until he started helping me with this property. And he came to this property, and I started explaining to him. We had to tear down an old house that was here, and he didn't believe the stuff. And so at one day, it was funny about my dad is he's always into cars. He had parked his Dodge pickup truck under a shade tree because it was so hot. He was very cautious about the interior getting hot. He was an Armor All addict. I mean, he kept his truck cleaned and waxed. Yeah. So he says, well, I had talked about I thought we had communicated with a lady that lived here, her husband had built the house or expanded on the house in the 40s, and it was Miss Betty Gray's mom. Betty Gray actually lived right up the hill, and I had met her, and she had come down here, was really interested in what we were doing to the place. And so I was like, well, Miss Betty Gray's mom, I think she's talking to us. And he's like, that's a bunch of BS. That old, and he used some choice words. I'm not going to believe it till that old comes down here and slaps me in the face or something. Well, he gets in his truck to leave, and the middle of his dash is cracked.
Mm.
And he's like, oh, it's just coincidence. He called me when he got home. He's like, it's coincidence. It's an old truck, whatever. He drives his car the very next day, parks it in the same spot, gets in it, and he calls me. He's like, Michael, get over here. His dash is cracked in the same spot. And
That is normal.
he apologized to the world, to whoever he needed to apologize to right then. And then he said he has seen some orbs. He said this was after his stroke, but I don't have a reason to doubt him. He said, Michael, I was sitting out on the back porch, and this light came up to me, and it shined in my face, and it turned colors, and I told him I didn't mean it any harm, and I hope it didn't mean any harm to me. And he said it just kind of blinked and it left. And so he doesn't know if that lizard thing he saw, that's what he struggles with, because I think he sees lights and stuff sometimes that he talks about, and he has feelings and stuff, but he doesn't know if it was military or not, or if it was UFO. He ponders on it, but he's never really come to a conclusion. He gets worked up. That's what happens with his the one effect of his stroke. He can't walk really well now. His balance is off, and he gets really emotional.
Mm-hmm.
Like he can hardly talk about all the stuff with Iran right now, because that was his real service when he was deployed and doing things with Delta and with Colonel Beckwith. A lot of it centered around Iran, and he gets so worked up, he'll start crying and just get so. I ask him every once in a while, what do you think when we talk about it? We also saw one time. Uh, I think this might have been before it, and he talks about this too. We were walking down a creek, and just all of a sudden, about 50 yards in front of us, it looked like the original Ghostbusters when those gargoyles came to life and those dogs were running.
Yes.
It was like a big Rottweiler. It came out of the bushes, out of the trees, across the gravel of the creek, hit right where the gravel and the water met, and then in one bound up a 15-foot bank, probably covered 30 feet in distance and 15 feet in height, and took off running. And he just looked at me and said, what was that?
Whoa.
I said, Daddy, I don't know. I don't know what it was, but I've since seen stuff. I think it was a hellhound. That's what I describe it as a hellhound.
That's what Larry just said in the chat. Hellhound.
Yeah. Yeah. So he wouldn't want, I mean, he wouldn't want to talk about it. And then after I saw Bigfoot and after he's opened his mind a little bit, he's admitted, Michael, we did see something that day. That I think that might have been coming out of a portal or into a portal or what, because there was no sound. The only sound was the splash
Mhm.
and gone. So,
Wow,
yeah,
it sounds like this is something that it's almost, I want to say generational, like in my family, we have a long history of on both sides of my family of people experiencing ghosts and even UFOs and things like my great grandmother and my great aunt were living up in North Georgia in Rome, where we have a lot of dogman and werewolf encounters right now going on. But
yeah,
they were up in Rome, and the way they described it was never a UFO with ETs. It was always a light came down from the sky, it
yeah,
enveloped their car, and it was angels taking them out of harm's way. And
yeah,
so God and the angels had saved them from a wreck or something.
yeah,
But see, I'm looking at it as like, well, they got abducted by aliens. Okay. And that's the
yeah,
way I'm looking at it, but they never looked at it like that. But it's all about the perspective, I guess, but
yeah,
I'm just saying that because there's a history in our family of like strange things happening, even, fireballs coming out of the woods when
yeah,
a great 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 grandmother was dying on her deathbed and the fireball came in the house and it went around into every room and the windows and under the house, and then it went back out and then she died. That kind of stuff
yeah,
has
yeah,
happened. And
yeah.
goat my family's houses being haunted from all my aunts and uncles, everybody talking about. I mean, it's in our family, it runs in our blood.
Yeah, and we're the same way. So I found out recently, I think it's my fourth great grandmother, my fourth back was full-blooded Chickasaw Indian. And then on my dad's mom's side, he tells this story, and again, I've had this validated by other people. They would say Grandma Collins was just weird. She used a Bible. She had a special Bible with notations in it, and she would grow the best crops. She never had a failed crop. And he remembers a kid came in, and I think it was a piece of tin. They were roofing a barn, and a piece of tin had come down and almost cut his hand off or wrist off, and they couldn't stop the bleeding, and they carry him in. And she came in the room with the Bible, and she said, "Everybody get out." And then within 5 minutes, she came out, and that bleeding had stopped. And he said they've been putting stuff on it, and so she was weird like that. And then my aunt, who was going to give me that Bible actually, and then it just disappeared. I don't know where it is when my aunt passed away, but spirits would come talk to her like full form, sit down in her rocking chair. She had a lady in black that would come, and I was the only one. Everybody, there's Aunt Tracy, was my dad's sister. I was the only one that would talk to her about it, and I didn't at the time honestly believe her. She died pretty early in life. She had brain cancer 2 or 3 different times, so she was always on medication and stuff.
Mhm.
But I remember I'd answer the phone and I'd talk to Aunt Tracy for hours about this weird stuff. And back then they said, well, she's crazy, but Grandma Collins wasn't crazy. So it's kind of a conflicted thing. But yes, we have a history of that in my family as well.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's something that people have always talked about laying hands on people, and there's
Hmm.
a power in that, and it can heal
Yeah,
people, and I'm 100%. I know it's a frequency thing as well. It's a intuitive, a belief. There's
yeah.
a higher power out there. Okay, and
Yeah.
it all works in conjunction together. I think.
It
Yeah.
does. It does. And I'm openly, I believe in the Christian explanation, in the Christian
Mhm.
God. I believe Jesus was real and operates in people's lives. Um, I encourage people to find their own way with that, but I always say we have to all agree we were created. This world is a creation. There is a higher power in control. Now, however you come to grips to explain that is on you. But it doesn't take us. This wasn't a big accident. this
Mhm.
this wasn't a big explosion, and now here's this wonderful thing that's unique to any else thing known in the universe. So
That's right.
Yep.
There's more at work here for sure.
Yep.
And I can appreciate it. And I'm just so tickled that you came on tonight and shared these stories with us and all your encounters. I have a question. How does your family today, like your wife and your daughters, how do they handle all of this? And are they intuitive like you are? And are they handling the Bigfoot and cryptid stuff okay out at the LBL?
They are. I think my little one, Layla, has probably got the intuitive stuff. They're okay with the ghosts. They've been raised with it. It was funny when my wife's sister would come down from New York. For a while, we had a little Daniel Tiger trolley, which was a replica of the Mr. Rogers trolley. And when she would come down, the ghost would turn lights on that. They would turn. I would take the batteries out of things that have batteries in them, and they would still make them light up.
Mhm.
And the girls were around that. So, and I've always tempered it with, there's some rules when you mess with this stuff. So I've always made sure they were educated about it. The girls love going out and listening. My oldest, or my middle daughter, I've got a 23 now, but the two that are with me are 6 and 11. My 11-year-old Briar, she loves to whistle, and she gets whistles back, and she enjoys that. My little one Layla, she says, I saw Bigfoot's yegg, YEG. I saw Bigfoot's yegg. Um, they love it. They go on expeditions with us. Elizabeth Sparks helped them cast a print. They found the print, so it's very normal to us. Um, I know things. My wife had to get kind of used to. I shocked her the first night she was here when we were dating. My players. So she worked at a school. She's an athletic trainer now for my school, and I'm the athletic director. But we were also at another school together, and that's how we met. She moved in, and my players had told her that I was weird and my house was haunted. So when she came over here, she's like, I want to see this. So Miss Baker, we call her, would turn a flashlight on and off. Blink twice for yes, once for no. She would mess with the flashlight. So we get in the dark room. Here's this girl down here from New York with this weird Kentucky dude. And I say, Miss Baker, this is Kara. If, she's going to be hanging around. She'd like to talk to you. You can turn that light on. Well, the light came on. And that wasn't shocking, but I went, thank you, Miss Baker. Can you turn it off? When it goes off, Kara's like, just like, whoa. And then when it started blinking, and Kara would eventually say, can you blink the light 3 times? And it would on cue, blink it 3 times. She was not, she came back the next day. So she was, you know, and she's Christian as well. We've gone to church together. She's very open to it. I think she's got her own gift that way. She's just learning about them right now. She's not as far along maybe as I am, but the spiritual side of life and the paranormal side of life and the cryptid, that's all just a normal part of our family, and thankfully that makes it easier on me.
It's the same in my family too, Mike.
Yeah.
It's the same. It's when I grew up, I was never really made fun of in my family for all the weird stuff that I was into, like Bigfoot and ghosts and aliens and UFOs and stuff.
Yeah.
Honestly, my family kind of encouraged it a little
Right.
way. And,
Right.
if it weren't for my mom, I wouldn't have joined that Bigfoot field research team, back in
Yeah.
2011. She's the one that invited me out to a lecture they were giving.
Yeah.
And so I've been blessed in that aspect. And so
Yeah.
I've also gotten my son involved. And I mean, I was Bigfooting. I didn't go out in the woods so much when I was pregnant with him. Okay.
Yeah.
But after he was born, I did, when he got old enough, I started taking him camping and stuff. And
Yeah.
he's loved it. He loves it. And he's seen a Bigfoot already. And he has no idea how cool his mom is, Mike. These kids
Yeah.
have no idea how cool they are. They
I'll
don't
tell you.
appreciate it now, maybe, but they will one day. I'm telling you.
I'll tell you a funny thing, how used to this stuff my wife is. So, we've talked about remote viewing, and I'm not an expert, but when I remote view, I actually end up what I draw as I let my hand go tends to be more accurate. So we just went on vacation, and before we went on vacation, I did ask, what scratch off lottery ticket has the highest percentage of winning? And I scribbled this thing, and I tell you what, it had an arrow on it, and I told Kara, I said, okay, we're fixing to go through Ohio, through Pennsylvania, through New York. I'm looking for this, right? And you probably know more of what I'm talking about than a lot of people do. So we come back, we get back into Kentucky, and we walk into this little convenience store to get gas. There they are. It's right there. I bought three of them. They're $10 tickets. We won $100. And listen, my wife, instead of being awestruck and like, oh my God, this worked, she said, why didn't you ask which one would win $100,000? I mean, she's like, this is not enough. She's just like, she's totally cool with the weirdness. She's like, you screwed up. You asked the wrong question. So
let's go back and get more, kids.
right.
Yeah.
So she's very comfortable with it. I'll say that.
That's fantastic. I'm so glad that you guys are so open
Yeah.
and cool like that. That's the way I try to be with my son. And
Yeah.
Martin said, I remember Martin and Barton really bragging about your kids. And this is what Martin says: Mike's daughters can set up camp, pitch tents, start fires, and cook supper and everything. That's wonderful.
They are very good. I'm very proud of them. They always get a lot of compliments, and it's not just on their behavior. They're very comfortable. They're getting old enough now, especially Briar. She's getting some other interests, so they'll balk a little bit now if we tell them we're going to the woods. But once we get there, you would think they were born and raised there, because they were. Yep. Yeah.
Well, you're going to have to bring him out there sometime when I'm out there. We're going to go camping, and we'll do some Bigfooting with the kids sometimes. I'd like to bring my son up to the LBL sometimes when I know I'll get a cabin or something if he comes with me. But yeah, it's wonderful, and I'm trying to set my kid up to be the next generation of researchers.
Yeah, okay. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, I don't know. It's fun for me, and I think it's fun for him too, but
yeah,
we'll see. I don't know. But Mike, I have thoroughly enjoyed this tonight. Big time. Thank you so much for being here. I hope you'll come back and hang out with me again on the show.
Anytime.
Okay, perfect. I mean, we've covered everything from your Bigfoot encounters to multiple like Dogman encounters, and even your father's reptilian encounter at the LBL. Are there in orbs and all that? Yeah. What else is hiding in the LBL that we didn't cover, Mike? What else is out there, you think?
Well, I think there's always going to be a human element there. There's wolves there. There's bears now. There's mountain lions there. The level of spooky stuff. I keep learning, like this rake thing. I never knew about a rake. I knew about a crawler. There's crawlers, but I think you would be better served to ask what is not there, because that's going to be the short list. There's everything. I've got a book somewhere. We've got the Lady in White, the Spectral Lady in White. One of my first things was a friend of mine. I won't say his name, but I'm friends with him here on Facebook. He got ran out of a place by a ghost, a screaming wind on a calm, clear day. And he comes to work, and we're like, "Did you get a turkey?" He said, "I'm never going back there again." And then I've had similar happen since. You get the metallic sounds and the portals opening. We've got there's people ghosting boats. There's the phantom trucker. So, and this is all like I said, this is a local book. I'm looking over here because I usually keep it on my desk over here. But so the lore, it's way before, people talk about, well, the 82 massacre didn't happen and that's BS. You can throw that out the window. That doesn't mean that the other stuff did or didn't happen. Throw that out. That's just one story of hundreds, maybe thousands of other stories.
Mm-hmm. There's more stories to be had out there too. And,
yes. I
mean, I'm pretty sure if I got dropped off there, I mean, that would be one of my worst nightmares. Like, I shouldn't be telling the general public what my worst nightmare is, but like that would be really rough. Like getting dropped down there with no flashlight, no weapon, in the middle of the LBL with nothing to protect yourself, and just being stuck there. That would just be, gosh, that would be terrifying. That would be.
I would do a lot of praying and try to get to that paved road, and it's there's people. It's funny, people get lost there, and I don't know, topography wise, it's only 8 to 10 miles wide at its longest. If you pick a direction and stick with it, you're going to hit a lake or a road or a bridge. But it's so easy to get turned around in there. It's amazing, just people that have been there all their lives, and they'll put on Facebook, well, I got turned around today, and a 2-hour hike turned into a 6-hour hike.
Yeah. Got
You know?
stuck in another cemetery.
Yeah. No,
It all looks the same to me. Bunch of
yeah, it's
cemeteries.
surprisingly remote. It's surprisingly remote. It really is, and again, it can be real scary.
It can be. It can be. Well, Mark, Mike, do you have any final words of advice for the audience tonight? Or like anybody wants to go to the LBL, do you have any kind of advice to give them
Ye-
as far as like safety or just anything?
Well, I tell them, come visit this place. It's awesome. Don't be alone. Do most of your stuff in the daytime. If you're camping somewhere, stick with the campgrounds and the noted ones. Again, not by yourself. Me personally, I'm always going to tell somebody to be prayed up, be open minded. Um, don't be confrontational. Yeah, don't be confrontational. Don't. I really believe, if you've got a pure heart and pure intentions, you're gonna be safe most of the time. I think there's the negativity and things that you can get drawn down into, and I think those are the type of people that maybe, for whatever reason, draw some of the negative stuff. But be aware. Be aware of that place. Again, the human element. That place is huge. That
Yeah.
place is huge. There's so many wells and cisterns and things. I tell people, if you're hiking, I always carry 50 feet of rope in my pack. I've got knots tied into it and several loops about 10 feet up, because there's cisterns, there's wells, there's old septic tanks you can fall into. There's still caves and crevices. So you very much have to be, especially if you're hiking, prepared. Whistle, definitely whistle, extra water, extra stuff. Don't take it for granted. Don't take it lightly, but enjoy it. There's a lot to enjoy. The history. Be respectful of the history. Be respectful of the land, and I think you'll be okay.
Yes, respect is a big part of all of this, and
Hmm.
so that's what I always tell everybody. Like, don't live in fear. Fear is healthy, though. You gotta have a little bit of fear.
Yeah.
It'll
Yeah.
save your life. But just be aware of your surroundings and like know where you're going. I'd say don't ever get to a campsite after dark if you don't know where you're going. Something the know what's out there,
Yeah.
and buckle up, buttercups. If you go to the
Yep.
LDL,
There
that's
you
my
go.
advice. Yeah,
That's probably, you put it way more. That's what I should have said. Buckle up, Buttercup.
buttercups, and don't go swimming in that lake.
There you go.
Okay, just
There you
just
go.
don't do it. Just don't. And
Yep.
yeah. Oh my gosh, Mike, I really did enjoy this, and so thank you so much for sharing all your encounters with us and stuff.
Yeah.
And you actually have a YouTube channel. Would you like to tell the audience about your YouTube channel?
Well, yeah, and I'm not trying to monetize it or look for subscribers or views or anything. And usually, I only post between October and March. It's Smith Ridge Adventures. It's got a little mountain there, and I do everything I've talked about that I have gotten on video. And I'll admit, I'm old. I'm 54 years old, so I can live life without an electronic device. And a lot of times, I just want to experience stuff and not look at it through a screen. But the stuff I have caught, and there's a lot of it, I do put up there and share. It's just, go check it out.
I'm going to pull it up for the audience to see. Okay, so you guys
Okay,
go
absolutely.
find this YouTube channel. Okay, Smith Ridge Adventures. It's actually that's LBO. That's the lake right there with the
That's
bridge.
that's it. That's it. Yeah.
I
My
love
wife
this
took that.
place.
My wife took that picture. Yep.
That's a great picture. Some of the most beautiful pictures I have of the LBL are of the sunset going over that
Yeah.
bridge.
Oh yeah, you can't beat it.
It's gorgeous. Yeah, I was actually thumbing through some of your videos today. It's wonderful,
Yep.
absolutely cool stuff, and you'll learn a lot, y'all. If you go check
Yep.
out, y'all go subscribe, Smith Ridge Adventures.
That's
Okay,
it.
and all right. Well, Mike, I certainly hope I get to hang out with you guys again out at the LBL. I'll
Me
be
too.
back up there. I'm not going to say when I'm coming, but I'm definitely coming back up there in a couple
Okay.
months. So I'll see it. I'll probably see it at the distillery, maybe
Yep.
or
Yep.
something. Okay.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
As much as I talk about that distillery, people are going to think I drink moonshine all the time or something. I tell you what, they just
It,
have. I do have some on my shelf back here, thanks to Martin.
I
Okay.
got I got some over here, and I've tasted it over there. It's delicious. I'm not a big drinker, so that bottle probably lasts me the rest of my life. But Jimmy Smith, man, you don't do it better than him. He's a great guy. I tell you what, he's a testament. If you want a guy, his grandfather, I've been in Colson Hollow with Jimmy, and he's like, my grandfather used to load moonshine right over there before this was a lake. It was a river. And he's been in that place his whole life, and just recently he's like, there's some weird stuff out here. He's, you
Mhm.
know, total 180. He's like, this is incredible, this stuff that's happening that I'm seeing. He's a great testament to the history of LBL, to the cryptid stuff that's going on, to the being a hardworking business owner, to being having a legacy here and his family. He's just a great guy. If you're down here, go up there and buy some of his moonshine.
It's the real stuff too, y'all. It's the
It
real
is.
stuff. It's not that stuff you get at the gas station.
No, no,
Okay.
no, 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 no.
Oh no, it's not. It's the good stuff. And shout out to Matt too, War Criminal. He's given me a bottle or two as well. Okay, so I
Okay.
actually do have a nice collection.
Yeah.
Salted caramels, where it's at. I'm gonna leave it at that. Okay, but anyways, but I've saved my bottles for I don't know what I'm saving them for, but I cannot drink that, not by myself at least.
Right.
But yeah, I think it's great. Actually, Jimmy, who owns Golden Pond Distillery, he's been having cryptid town halls and stuff there at his distillery, and it's bringing the community together, and it's bringing people from all over the South over there, really, all over the place.
Oh yeah.
And so I applaud them for that. I think it's wonderful.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And everybody, we get to meet people and hear about their Dogman encounters and Bigfoot.
Oh, I know. I know.
Isn't
No,
that great?
it is. Oh, it is.
Great. Much more mainstream now, isn't it?
There's way more crazy people than I thought, you know, and I guess misery loves company, craziness loves company. We got a lot of company in this cryptid stuff, and it makes us feel good. And like I say, he's a new one. He's got some stories. He doesn't share them because he's the host, but I think he's gonna share at some point. I don't know. Martin would know better than that. But I was talking to Martin today. They've actually had some cool stuff happen.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, I don't know. Hopefully there wasn't moonshine involved. No, I'm just kidding.
No. They were during the day perfectly. So I think in one of them, Jimmy's mom was along. So he wasn't going crazy with his mom there. So
I love her. It's Miss Susie, isn't it? Miss Susie?
Yep.
I love her. Shout out to Miss Susie. She's so sweet. And yeah. It's I don't doubt it. And they were so welcoming and so cool. And I can't wait. The first place I'm gonna go when I go back there is stopping by their distillery. For
Absolutely.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Well, shout out to everybody that was in the chat tonight, to Martin. And I mean, we had a packed house tonight,
Good.
Mike. In the chat. So thank you to everybody who was here, all of our Kentucky friends up there, everybody in the Tennessee and wherever, all over the place. All my research buddies were in the chat tonight. And I wanted to thank Mad Paximus. Thank you for that super sticker, Mad Paximus. Small token of love to say thank you, Jessica, for all that you do. Thank you so much for that. I really appreciate that so much. And I want to thank all my moderators for being here tonight. Y'all are the best. And yeah, I love this show tonight. This was so great.
It was fun.
It was fun. All right, everybody, please go over to Smith Ridge Adventures on YouTube. We're actually broadcasting live on X, Facebook, and YouTube tonight. And you can find the show on podcast platforms first thing tomorrow morning. Okay, if anybody missed it tonight live. And so you please stay safe out there, Mike. Okay.
I will.
Hold it down at the LBL. Yeah, hold it down. And holler at me if anything weird happens from here on out. Okay.
Yes,
I want to hear all about it.
You got it.
Okay. All right. That's wonderful. All right, everybody. Well, y'all have a great night. Please come back and see me on Monday at 1 p.m. Eastern. I believe I'm going to have Rob Effler here on the show with NCI, talking about NCI, North Carolina Investigates. Rob is scheduled to be here with me on Monday. That'll be good.
Great guys.
They're so fun to hang out with, man.
Absolutely.
Our fellow Bigfoot brethren out there.
Yep.
Okay. All right, y'all. Everybody have a great night, and please stay safe out there. Don't live in fear, and keep your head on swivel, y'all. And I'll see y'all back here on Monday. All right. See you, Mike. Bye, y'all.
Adios. See ya.